This man was once recognized as the strongest player, but while raiding the Tower of Heaven, he was personally betrayed by his allies. At death's door, he exhausted the last of his strength to send his companions out. Then, while still fully conscious, he clearly sensed it. He had died. His name was Subaru, the guild master of the strongest guild, Blue Eyes. On this day, they joined forces with several famous guilds to raid the boss on the 8th floor of the Tower of Heaven. During the battle, the Blue Eyes Guild performed especially brilliantly. Years of climbing the tower side by side had made their coordination nearly flawless. But just then, the support unit in the rear was suddenly ambushed. Subaru instantly realized something was wrong, but it was already too late. He had long since been poisoned by hydrovenom, and the members of Blue Eyes were also tightly entangled by the hydro. In the end, they still managed to slay the hydra with all their strength. But in the very next second, the Blue Eyes Guild was ambushed by the other guilds and suffered heavy casualties. At that moment, Subaru was gasping for breath, and half the mask on his face had shattered. With his back against the wall, he had no idea how many blades and spears he had already taken, and his consciousness was fading little by little with the loss of blood. He looked around and saw only corpses strewn across the ground. For Subaru, who had always climbed the tower alone, these people were among the few he could call friends. But now he was poisoned, his body could no longer heal naturally, and his fatigue had soared to 95. The higher the fatigue, the more likely the body was to fail, and reduced resistance to poison was only one of the effects. More fatally, once his fatigue reached 100, he would die on the spot. In the next moment, Subaru fixed the people surrounding him with a cold, gleaming stare. To be precise, he was staring at the man at the very front. Gritting his teeth, he asked, "Why are you doing this, you bastard?" The anger was almost spilling out of his voice. It was a gentle-looking man, Itsuki, the guild master of Blue Zone, and once a teammate of Blue Eyes. Then he walked up to Subaru and said in a low voice, "It's been 10 whole years, Subaru. I've been preparing for this day for all 10 years, so you should understand." As if he had waited far too long for this moment, Itsuki went on talking to himself. "This was the only way to defeat you, but those Blue Eyes friends of yours weren't easy to deal with either. They were even harder than I expected. You thought you gave me everything, but you had no idea how much torment that made me endure. So I chose the world, not you." But even in the end, he still did not reveal the real reason. He quickly suppressed his emotions, wearing a relieved smile on his face. "Sorry things turned out like this, but I've finally seen the finish line. And don't be too regretful. After you die, you'll be recorded in history as a hero. So even now, you still won't say why." Subaru let out a turbid breath, suppressed to the limit. He forced himself to stand, and the more he thought about it, the more wrong it felt. Blue Eyes and Blue Zone had always been long-term allies, and Blue Zone was even the guild Itsuki founded after leaving Blue Eyes, with a name that was like its shadow. That was exactly why they had trusted him until the very end. Yet he had torn the alliance apart with his own hands. He was clearly poisoned by the Hydra and had dozens of bloody holes stabbed through his body, but in terms of presence, he absolutely could not lose. After all, he was already beyond saving. In that instant, Subaru caught the opening when Itsuki's legs trembled, seized that fleeting gap, and pulled a colorful fan-shaped item out of his bag. The instant Itsuki recognized that fan, his pupils suddenly widened, but it was already too late. At this moment, Aiolos had 4 uses remaining. Subaru gripped the handle tightly with one hand and began charging it. He clenched his teeth. If he had a choice, he too wanted to live on together with everyone. But besides him, there were exactly only 4 guild members still alive. "Blow them away, Aiolos." With that command, a violent gale rose from all directions and sent the 4 guild members flying off in different directions. For Subaru, this was a desperate gamble. He could not guarantee he could save his badly wounded companions, but aside from this, there was no other choice. "After them, don't let a single one leave alive," Itsuki roared in panic. At the same time, the players of the Martial Alliance also prepared to chase in the direction the lights had flown. But a voice forcefully halted their steps. "Before that, you'll have to play with me to the end. Who the final winner is hasn't been decided yet." At this moment, Subaru's fatigue was too high, and the duration of Lord of Lightning had been drastically shortened. But he seemed not to care at all, only igniting all his remaining strength. As Subaru let out a low shout of Lord of Lightning, descend, a bolt of lightning carrying black light fell from the sky and struck directly on top of his head. But the scale of the lightning was very small. When he used this move in the past, everything within sight would be swallowed by electric light. Subaru once again assumed a fighting stance while grabbing the spear embedded in his abdomen. He forcibly pulled out the spear that had pierced his muscles and torn his organs apart, pain enough to make anyone pass out instantly, along with gushing blood. At the same time, a fatigue warning popped up before his eyes. As for a weapon, this is enough. He suddenly raised the spear, its tip pointing straight at all his enemies, his voice as cold as a blade. Immediately after, Subaru took off and threw away the mask covering his face, revealing those eyes burning with fighting spirit. And so, using the spear that had once pierced his own body as his weapon, he began his final battle. Subaru burned away the last thread of his strength in a desperate fight, yet enemy players still kept pouring in like a tide. He would not lose to this pack of trash. What was truly fatal was his fatigue. For Subaru, whether he lived or died did not matter, as long as Itsuki died. But his fatigue had already reached 97, and he had to find a way to get close to Itsuki. Just then, an enemy player suddenly attacked from behind. Subaru did not dodge at all and took the blow head-on with his body. His fatigue jumped to 98 as a result. Immediately after, another enemy player thrust forward fiercely with a sword. He once again took the strike with his body, and seeing this, the other enemy swarmed forward, wanting to claim a share of the credit for killing him. The player who had struck him with the sword shouted excitedly that he had killed Subaru. But Subaru replied with an amused look in his eyes, "What are you talking about?" Before the words had even finished, black lightning erupted violently, and the surrounding enemies were struck down one after another. Subaru grabbed the sword stuck in his chest with difficulty, gritted his teeth against the pain, and slowly pulled it out inch by inch. During this time, no one dared approach rashly again. They surrounded him from a distance, whispering among themselves, their eyes filled with both fear and excitement. This monster, is he finally going to die? Watching the scene, Itsuki coldly thought to himself, "Subaru, is your era really ending just like this?" At this moment, Subaru's fatigue finally neared its limit. It could be said that if he moved even slightly, his fatigue might surge to 100, and the next second would mean death. But the creed engraved into his very bones would not allow him to collapse like this. In the next instant, Subaru burned away the rest of his remaining strength and raised his spear, locking onto Itsuki. With all the strength in his body, he hurled it with savage force. And as Itsuki looked at the blessing of the Archangel in his hand, he could only sigh inwardly, what a pity. Subaru had given him that item before they raided the Hydra. When fatigue reached 100, it would immediately restore half of the user's fatigue. If Subaru had kept it for himself back then, he would be able to live now. The spear, carrying a shrill tearing sound through the air, shot straight toward Itsuki's face. But unfortunately, Subaru's fatigue had already reached 100, his consciousness was cut off in an instant, and he did not get to witness Itsuki's death with his own eyes. Yet even stranger was this, he had clearly died, and yet he could still think, only the 5 senses that had remained constantly tense all this time had completely disappeared. Subaru's thoughts drifted in the void for who knew how long when suddenly a sharp, foul stench rushed into his nose. His vision was still pitch black, but sensation was returning to his limbs. He abruptly pushed himself up, and the lid above his head fell to the ground with a clang. Only then did he see clearly, he was actually lying inside a garbage bin. He instinctively checked his status. After reviving from death in an unfamiliar environment, the first thing he had to do was confirm his status panel. He did not care at all about 61 points of fatigue. What was truly glaring were the shabby, laughable level and attributes. Every skill he had fought desperately to obtain was actually gone. Just then, a tearing headache exploded in his mind, and Subaru frowned in pain. But the memories that surfaced in the next second no longer belonged to Subaru, but to the original owner of this body. The original owner had lost both parents in childhood and was a beggar avoided by everyone on the streets. Not only could he never eat his fill, but because he had the same name as the Blue Eyes hero Subaru of the district, he was cursed and beaten every day. And what chilled him most was this, the 20 years since his death had actually already passed. The garbage bin lid lying on the ground reflected his face, black hair, gentle features, and still the youthful face of a young man. For a moment, he could not make sense of what had happened and could only force himself to climb out of the garbage bin. But because he had not yet adapted to this body, he fell down as soon as he crawled out. At that moment, a player kit lying on the ground came into view. Subaru reached out and picked up the player kit, thinking it had probably slipped out of the original owner's pocket before he was stuffed into the garbage bin. Although the style was completely different from the one he used in the past, with the support of the original owner's memories, he skillfully searched for information related to Blue Eyes. The moment he pressed confirm, a flood of news poured out. Subaru quickly skimmed through it all, yet among every report, he could not find any news of survival from the companions he had sent away. Just then, Subaru's gaze suddenly froze, staring fixedly at the image on the screen. Itsuki, that bastard, was actually still alive. In truth, Subaru's relationship with him had not been bad, it had even been very good. Teammates who climbed the tower risking their lives together could hardly avoid seeing each other as friends, or at least Subaru had always believed so. But back then, Itsuki had suddenly proposed leaving Blue Eyes without explaining the reason in a single word. Before leaving, Itsuki told Subaru not to worry, saying that even if he left, he would still become his shadow. A few years later, Itsuki founded the Blue Zone Guild. That was the name of the shadow he had spoken of. After sorting out his thoughts, Subaru wandered the streets aimlessly. He had thought that after 20 years, the Tower of Heaven would at least have been conquered up to the 10th floor, yet it was still stuck on the 9th. Suddenly, he stopped in his tracks, stunned by a piece of information on the player kit. He had not expected that today was actually the death anniversary of Blue Eye Subaru, and that people had even built a memorial hall to commemorate him. Unable to suppress his curiosity, he followed the directions on the player kit and arrived at the Subaru Memorial Hall. The moment he saw it with his own eyes, Subaru was still shocked by its scale. It was almost like a small shrine. Outside the memorial hall hung a mask exactly like the one he had once worn, as large as a door. Subaru stepped inside the hall, and the first thing he saw was actually a screen playing footage of his battles. Naturally, that was where the crowd was the thickest. But he felt not the slightest pride. Instead, he could not understand what there was about him worth remembering. Now, between him and the Subaru in the footage, only the same name remained. He stared at the footage, and a question pierced his mind. Who built this place, and what did they intend to do with it? Thinking of those painful memories, the fire in Subaru's heart instantly flared up, and he suddenly lowered his head. But when the footage reached its end, a voice engraved into his very bones, one he would never forget for as long as he lived, entered his ears. There on the screen was Itsuki, wearing a hypocritical expression and speaking words in praise of Subaru. Subaru trembled with rage, and the fury in his chest was almost about to explode on the spot. He suddenly understood how that footage, and this memorial hall, had come to be. Because Itsuki had said back then, "Don't regret it, after you die, you will be recorded as a hero." Because Subaru was Blue Eyes itself, and Blue Zone had always been like Blue Eyes' Shadow Alliance. For Blue Zone, having lost Blue Eyes, to step into the sunlight, it had to borrow Blue Eyes' name and halo. And to achieve that, the simplest method was to shape Subaru into a hero admired by all, making use of the privilege only the dead can enjoy. Just then, someone suddenly bumped into Subaru's back, directly interrupting his thoughts. Subaru turned around and discovered that the one who had hit him was actually a child. The child had lost his footing and fallen to the ground. He immediately crouched down to help the child up, nervously asking if he was hurt. But in the next second, his whole body froze in place, shock almost written across his face. Because the child was wearing a mask identical to Blue Eyes Subaru's. Hearing the commotion, the child's parents immediately rushed over and repeatedly asked Subaru whether he was all right. Subaru explained that he was fine, that he had only been lightly bumped. But the scene before him made him freeze once again. The child's parents were also wearing identical masks. Subaru suddenly turned around and swept his gaze across the surroundings. He could hardly believe it and even raised a hand to rub his eyes hard. But when he looked up again, he drew in a sharp breath. In the memorial hall, aside from himself, almost everyone was wearing a mask identical to Blue Eye Subaru's. The hall was filled with photos, objects, and footage related to Subaru, but he only gave them a rough glance before looking away. As he walked deeper into the memorial hall, one thing caught his eye more than any exhibit. He saw his memorial portrait piled high with flowers. There were actually this many people who remembered him. But on second thought, was this a carefully staged performance? A show put on to steal Blue Eye's achievements? Just then, from within the layers of bouquets, Subaru sensed a familiar magic power. Focusing his eyes, he saw that hidden among the chrysanthemums was a transparent ice flower so unreal it hardly seemed real. He immediately pushed through the crowd and rushed forward. The visitors lined up around him were shoved aside and cursed loudly, but he no longer cared. Very quickly, Subaru rushed to the pile of flowers and reached out impatiently. The moment his fingertips touched the flower, a bone-piercing chill crawled up along his skin. The instant he grasped it, his whole body went rigid. This was a chrysanthemum carved from ice. His pupils contracted sharply, because he knew all too well, this was absolutely Shu's handiwork. A figure stood atop the clock tower overlooking the memorial hall. The old man looked down at the memorial hall, as if confirming that this year too would pass without incident. Behind him, the woman in a robe immediately chimed in. Exactly. If we'd been any later, by now we probably would have already started fighting with those people from Blue Zone. But did you really have to send that kind of thing? Wouldn't an ordinary chrysanthemum have been enough? The old man slowly removed his hat, the corner of his mouth lifting as he chuckled softly. Maybe if that guy comes back alive, he'll see the flower I left behind. In the next second, the old man's aged face cracked apart like splitting skin, revealing the face of a young man. He was none other than Asajiri Shu, the Blue Eyes member rumored to have died many years ago. The woman could not help asking, "You still think Subaru is alive?" Asajiri Shu replied calmly. After all, he had never seen the body with his own eyes. Every year on this day, he came here. The woman could only remind him. The problem is, we still haven't found that guy, and Itsuki may discover our location even faster. But Asajiri Shu acted as if he had not heard and walked straight past her. Watching his resolute back, the woman suddenly shouted. If that guy were really still alive, we wouldn't be hiding like this now. In her heart, she sighed. It seemed that this year too, she had failed to talk that guy out of it. Soon, the sky darkened into sunset. Subaru had already spent several hours searching around the memorial hall, but he still never managed to see Asagiri's shoe. He could only temporarily give up the search and turn back to the original owner's dormitory. After returning to the dormitory and calming his emotions, Subaru reorganized the current situation. He had never stopped searching for information related to the Blue Eyes Guild, but the result was still a complete blank. But the fact that Asagiri's shoe was still alive was already beyond doubt. He had never expected that guy to be able to hide his whereabouts, and for a full 20 years at that. Most likely, it was because Itsuki would never possibly let go of anyone who knew the truth. It was just that he still could not be sure whether Asagiri's shoe was the only one who survived, nor could he confirm whether the 4 people he had blown away with Iolos back then had truly been all 4 of them, or only some of them. But there was one thing he was certain of, besides taking revenge on Itsuki and the allied guilds. He now had one more reason he absolutely had to keep climbing upward. Those people who had been like family to him were all dead, yet in this world full of damned people, he alone had been reborn. That loneliness, along with the anger that felt like it would burn through his chest, was gradually being suppressed by a new thought. What he did now was not important. What mattered was, they were still alive somewhere. As long as they were still alive, there would definitely be a day when they met again. 2 days later, the day the beginner tutorial began finally arrived. It was a giant white stage, so wide it looked like several sports fields forcibly stitched together. Hyuga, the examiner of the beginner tutorial, stood with his arms crossed, looking down at the participant lying on the ground. At his feet lay the corpses of 2 lowest-ranked goblins, yet the participant was still panting heavily. Looking at such a pathetic sight, Hugo frowned and asked whether he wanted to challenge the next stage. A message popped up before the participant's eyes. Challenge the next stage? Each stage will add 1 goblin, and clearing a higher stage will grant the corresponding bonus reward. The participant's face turned pale. He was already barely holding on against just 2, so there was no way he could win. He gave up on challenging the next stage, and his figure instantly turned white and disappeared on the spot. Hyuga could not tolerate trash who could not even get through the tutorial continuing onward, and he thought of one contestant who had taken part in several rounds of trials before. Isaac, Reinhardt's son, possessed talent that surpassed even his bloodline, and only stopped challenging after defeating more than 20 goblins in total. Hugo could not help sneering. This year's tutorial is too easy. Kids these days are truly pathetic. But when he caught sight of the next contestant's name, he still paused slightly in surprise. It was a name known by everyone, one that even Hugo himself had once idolized. Faced with this contestant, his first reaction was not anticipation, but weariness. He sighed inwardly. This child would probably suffer endlessly because of that name. Everywhere he went, he would be compared to Subaru. Even the weapon in his hand was the sword Subaru commonly used. Of course, that was only if he passed the trial first. Immediately after, a message popped up before Subaru's eyes. 2 goblins are being generated. Please defeat the goblins. The goblins held poison-coated spikes in their hands, letting out shrill cries like monkeys. At the same moment the goblins assumed their attacking stances, Hyuga announced the start. But in that very instant, Subaru had already shot forward through the air, and with a flash of cold light as the blade cut through the air, 2 heads fell at the same time. In the blink of an eye, the goblins' heads were tumbling in midair. Hugo could not believe his own eyes and stared in shock, his eyes wide. He immediately turned his head to look at the boy who shared Subaru's name. During the 2 days before the tutorial began, Subaru had constantly been adapting to this body. Judging only by the attributes, the original owner really did have talent. He had just never truly brought it out before. After the first stage goblins breathed their last, the message challenge the next stage popped up before Subaru's eyes, and as though he had been waiting for exactly this, he selected continue without the slightest hesitation. Before long, Hugo was completely nailed in place by the scene before him. A goblin's head rolled weakly to his feet. He had originally still been counting the number of corpses, but soon gave up trying. By rights, the goblin corpses should only disappear once Subaru's battle ended. But the battle never ended, and the corpses kept piling higher and higher until there was almost nowhere left to step in the trial arena. Hyuga stared fixedly at Subaru's every movement, afraid of missing even a single instant. This was absolutely the most terrifyingly gifted boy he had ever seen in his life. He was not just swinging his sword casually. He was seeing through the situation 2 steps, 3 steps ahead in advance. This was already beyond something that could be summed up as merely good at fighting. Even Hyuga himself could not achieve that level of bodily control. He was not like Isaac, able to use magic, and his physical abilities did not appear especially exaggerated either. Yet even when facing 50 goblins, he still fought with an overwhelming presence. Hugo felt its scalp go numb and nearly lost his voice. Could this kid really be Subaru reincarnated? How exactly was he moving like this? Before long, Subaru dealt with the last goblin as well. A new message also appeared before his eyes. Stage 49 has ended. Challenge the final boss? Clearing a higher stage will grant the corresponding additional reward. Stage 50 was the final stage of the beginner tutorial, but Subaru did not hesitate for even a second and directly chose to continue the challenge. In the next second, a terrifying pressure instantly weighed down his entire body. The floor not far away exploded and split apart. A giant hand suddenly burst out from deep underground. When he saw the boss clearly, Hugo was struck dumb on the spot. What appeared before Subaru was actually a pig-headed monster 2 meters tall with a bloated body. At this moment, a prompt appeared. The Goblin King has detected all casualties prior to the 49th stage and has been completely enraged. Hugo hurriedly shouted at Subaru, "It's still not too late to give up now. I know you're strong, but the final boss isn't something you can defeat. With your current attributes, you simply can't deal effective damage. It's even questionable whether you can stab your blade into that thing's body at all." Subaru of course knew that this Goblin King was absolutely not the kind of existence the beginner tutorial was meant to defeat, but he had already thought of a way to deal with it. In the next second, Subaru actually let go of the sword in his hand on his own initiative. Hugo's mind went blank as he watched. "Kid, you've really gone insane? I thought something was off about you from the start." But before he could finish scolding him, the Goblin King's roar shook the trial arena, and its giant body charged fiercely towards Subaru with crushing wind pressure. Just then, a poison needle shot through the air with a whoosh and accurately stabbed into the Goblin King's thigh. The Goblin King's entire body stiffened, and it halted in panic, staring fixedly at Subaru, while Subaru bent over and searched through the pile of goblin corpses. In the next second, he was gripping several poison needles in his hand, his tone calm yet full of pressure. "Let's make a bet on what happens next. Whether you catch me first, or whether you turn into a pincushion first." As the words fell, Subaru violently threw 2 goblin poison needles. The poison needles tore through the air like sharp arrows and accurately buried themselves in the Goblin King's 2 eyes. The Goblin King covered its eyes with both hands and let out a scream as if being torn apart. It swung its giant hammer around wildly, but all of it was futile. A Goblin King with a crippled leg and blinded eyes had no chance of catching Subaru, who could control the distance with perfect precision. Subaru skillfully widened the gap again and once more slipped the poison needles he had picked up from the corpse pile between his fingers. He could not help recalling the days when he had practiced throwing knives with bitter effort. When he had first started, the throwing knives he cast had almost always missed the target. Back then, Reina happened to pass by and saw him practicing knife throwing. By coincidence, she was an expert in throwing concealed weapons, and on the spot she insisted on teaching him the technique. Then she took her stance and casually picked up a pen. In the next second, she threw it, and it pierced straight through the bullseye. Looking at that scene, she said calmly, "As long as you grasp the center of gravity, any weapon can be used like a throwing knife." At this moment, the poison needles were stabbing one by one into the Goblin King's body. Just as he had envisioned from the start, Subaru was gradually sending the poison needles into every vital corner of the Goblin King's body. The power of hidden weapons is proportional to rotational force. The longer the hesitation, the lower the accuracy. This was Yuling's theory, and it was precisely through her that Subaru had truly touched the threshold of knife throwing. Seeing this, Hyuga finally let out a breath of relief. Goblin corpses and poison needles would not disappear before the tutorial ended. He had never expected someone to make use of the system rules to this extent. It's not just the swordsmanship to slaughter goblins, but also this method of throwing hidden weapons with such precision. This guy is a genius, but is the word genius really enough? No matter how strong the Goblin King's vitality was, hundreds of poison needles had already been driven into its body. A single needle might not be fatal, but with that much poison flooding into its system, the result was different. Subaru bent down and picked up the sword that had fallen to the ground at the very beginning. He strode forward and, aiming at the neck of the dying Goblin King, drove the sword through it viciously in one thrust. Already on the verge of death from poison, the Goblin King died on the spot the instant its neck was pierced through. After the Goblin King completely collapsed, a message appeared before Subaru's eyes. The Goblin King has been defeated. He finally let out a breath. They seriously throw something like this into a beginner tutorial and expect people to kill it? If I hadn't borrowed the goblin's poison, it wouldn't have been so easy to butcher it. Immediately after, several reward messages popped up one after another. In this tutorial, a total of 2,425 achievement points have been obtained, and the tutorial shop has been unlocked. The shop will only display goods corresponding to the participants' point total. Subaru then opened the tutorial shop. This was the first time he had ever seen this interface. After all, the highest tutorial record had only reached stage 28. and what he was now looking at was a shop page no one had ever seen before. When he flipped to the page with items costing over 1,000 points, he could not help softly exclaiming on the spot. He had never expected even something like this to be sold here. This was an unnamed demonic blade, crafted by the demonic swordsmith Kindre, but left unnamed because it was a failure. It consumed the user's stamina and mental energy in exchange for greater sharpness and enhanced physical abilities. But the problem was that it devoured stamina. On top of that, Subaru still had to use lightning skills, so what he truly needed was not a demonic sword, but a holy sword. The second thing that caught his eye was the holy sword Miranda, forged from mithril, with more than enough strength and sharpness, and even its added effects suited Subaru well. But for this holy sword named Miranda, Subaru found himself strangely unable to feel interested, perhaps because the equipment he had once used had simply been too powerful. How to spend these points was a brand new starting point, and he had to be cautious. At that moment, a skill entry caught Subaru's eye. The farther back he flipped, the more expensive the skills became. But when he turned to the next page, the first thing that appeared was actually a skill rated F rank. Subaru had never seen a skill like this before, and thought that perhaps it might suppress the side effects brought by the demonic blade or his lightning skill. Since he saw a possibility, he purchased it without hesitation. In the end, he bought the unnamed demonic blade and the Wedge of Greed. This skill had extremely high compatibility with the demonic sword. Rather than letting the skill sit unused, it was better to make it show its value from the very start. Sensing that Subaru had already finished choosing his rewards, Hugo walked up behind him. From Hugo's point of view, the skill and item Subaru had chosen were both hard to understand, and he could not help asking, why choose that kind of skill? Not only might it prove useless, but its efficiency was not high either. But Subaru frowned and shot back, why should I tell you? Hugo's temper flared at his blunt tone, and he demanded to know what he meant by that. But very soon he suppressed his emotions again. Standing in Subaru's shoes, such wariness was normal too. Staring at Hugo, Subaru suddenly recalled how, when he had first confirmed that the man was the examiner, he had almost failed to control his expression. Because the first time he had met Hugo, the other man had still been an apprentice knight of the Knights Guild. During that meeting between the Night Nation and Blue Eyes, the youthful Hugo had once walked up to Subaru with a flushed face and asked for his autograph. He had stiffly held out the paper, his stare so direct that the pressure from it had been absurdly strong. Subaru had never imagined that the sniveling brat from back then would now sit in the position of examiner for the beginner tutorial, while he himself had become a novice who had just stepped into the tower. Helpless, he interrupted Hugo's lecture and said he would explain nothing, only asking that Hugo absolutely keep the tutorial results secret. But Hugo directly put on the airs of an elder and continued lecturing. Since you insist on acting like this, you obviously lack proper upbringing, so I'll teach you properly from the beginning. Subaru turned his head and walked away. Seeing this, Hugo immediately changed tack and extended an olive branch, asking whether he was interested in joining the Knights Guild. Without even turning his head, Subaru merely tossed out, not interested. Then, a message popped up before his eyes. Proceed to the second floor? Seeing that he was really about to leave, Hugo immediately hurried after him to try to stop him. But Subaru had already confirmed the transfer, and his figure began to fade away on the spot. Hugo could only stand where he was and sigh helplessly, thinking that he had overestimated this young man. Soon, Subaru was teleported to the second floor. At the starting point of a new tower floor, a village would inevitably form, and the second floor was an especially populous world. Stepping into the noisy marketplace, Subaru stood quietly in place, watching the streets full of people coming and going. Reaching the second floor carried extraordinary meaning for players. It not only meant passing the beginner tutorial, it also meant truly taking the first step into battle as a player, but for Subaru, that meaning weighed on him like shackles. Because he had already walked this path once, and this time he had to do better. For the sake of the teammates who might still be waiting for him, and also to avenge the cruel end everyone had suffered. After that, Subaru went to the central district and rented a private training room. This was also a place many novice hunters often came to. The owner asked casually, "What floor did you come from?" Subaru said he had just come up from the first floor. The owner suggested that he use training room number 1, which had complete basic facilities like straw dummies and practice mannequins. But Subaru felt number 1 was too basic and not suitable for him, so he directly chose number 5. The owner got a little annoyed when he heard that. "I kindly advised you to choose number 1, and you don't even appreciate it." But Subaru insisted on number 5, so in the end the owner still gave it to him, while reminding him that there would be no refund if he left halfway through. Subaru told him not to worry, though in a moment, the owner might need to pay a little more attention to that room. The higher the room number here, the greater the difficulty, and some hunters had even died in their own training rooms. After arriving at training room number 5, Subaru slowly pushed open the door. The moment he entered, he immediately began training. He had no intention of wasting even a second here. Then, he slowly drew the demonic sword from his waist. In an instant, a powerful curse swept through his entire body. He could feel how terrifying the sword was. If he did not want to be devoured by it, then he could only keep growing stronger. In the next moment, the sword's corrosion suddenly intensified, and he directly spat out a mouthful of blood. He had not expected this body to reach its limit so quickly. But all of this was within his expectations. This body had been weak to begin with. A system prompt sounded. Wedge of Greed is resisting the demonic sword. Partial resistance successful. In the next second, he easily lifted the sword in his hand. It was precisely because he had set his sights on this skill that he had dared choose this demonic sword. Now, his attributes were rising even further. Subaru let out a low laugh. The skill had indeed suppressed the corrosion, and now the real training could begin. Immediately after, his figure shot out violently. To him, the traps in the room were almost no different from decoration. 10 minutes later, the drowsy owner seemed to catch sight of a figure passing by. The owner rubbed his eyes. Impossible, right? It had not even been 10 minutes yet. Filled with doubt, he walked to the door of room number 5. After knocking for quite a while without getting a response, he pushed the door open directly. But the sight inside made him suck in a sharp breath on the spot. Training room number 5 had long since been reduced to a wreck, and every trap had been torn apart. After one night, Subaru had finally managed to sleep soundly, but his body still ached with heavy soreness. Not long after, he walked into a tavern, and the moment he sat down, the burden on his body really did ease quite a bit. Thanks to Wedge of Greed, he had successfully drawn out the power of the demonic sword. Ordinarily, with his current attributes, it should have been impossible for him to bear the demonic sword at all. But the synergy between Wedge of Greed and the demonic sword no longer needed any further proof. That also meant it would most likely be able to work together with his lightning power as well. From now on, the only things holding him back were skills and level. But the Subaru of the past had usually had only 50 credit points on him all year round. Just as Subaru was inwardly mocking his former self for being a pauper, he noticed that someone downstairs seemed to be live streaming. If someone tipped in the stream, the broadcaster could carry out whatever task the donor specified. That person suddenly poured coffee over his own head. "Thank you so much for the donation, boss." Subaru felt a little awkward watching it. For money, there was no need to go this far. But the moment money was mentioned, a glint still flashed in his eyes. He had spent a day figuring out the current state of things. This was the age of live streaming. Maybe he too could earn some money through donations, or at least secure a stable income to grow stronger. Just then, someone behind him called his name. "So you made it up here." As the man walked over, he released a wave of pressure. "I really didn't expect to run into you here. Do you live nearby too?" The moment the other party appeared, Subaru's expression changed immediately, and his body even instinctively stepped back. Apparently, the original owner had had an extremely bad relationship with this person. Seeing that he did not respond, the man's tone turned colder. "A friend is standing in front of you talking to you, and you plan to keep pretending to be deaf?" Subaru knew this feeling very well. It was not disgust, but fear. He raised his head. "I only just got here. What do you want with me?" But when he spoke, his fingers were still trembling slightly. The man sat down beside him as if nothing was wrong. "What a surprise. Even trash like you managed to pass the hunter exam. I thought the goblins would have torn you apart long ago." The moment he heard that, Subaru's temper flared, and he also remembered who this person was. His name was Isaac, and he had always bullied the former Subaru. The reason was simple, because he had the same name as the Subaru from 20 years ago. No matter how the original owner begged, Isaac had never once stopped. And because of that, the original owner had feared him down to his bones. Subaru cursed in his heart, idiot, to be bullied like that and never fight back. But right now he had no time to waste on Isaac. After downing a cup of coffee, he stood up to leave. Isaac gave a chuckle and smoothly told Subaru to buy him another cup. Subaru stood up directly. "If you want a drink, pay for it yourself. Your hands aren't broken, and your legs aren't crippled." Those words completely set Isaac off. "How dare you talk to me like that? Who possessed you?" He ordered Subaru to sit down. Subaru could not even be bothered to look at him and kept turning to leave. It was not that he did not want to avenge the original owner. He simply had more important things to do right now. But at that moment, Isaac grabbed his arm. With a threatening smile, he stared at Subaru. "In such a hurry to leave? Want to see what happens to trash that tries to run?" Subaru's eyes instantly turned cold. "I advise you to let go. It's for your own good. Otherwise, ending up with a broken arm or a shattered leg would be perfectly normal." The moment those words left his mouth, everyone in the coffee shop looked over. Isaac's face turned ashen. "Don't get too full of yourself." He also knew he could not make a scene in front of so many people, or he would be the one at a disadvantage. He gave two dry laughs. "Looks like your temper has grown lately. You can't even take a joke anymore." Fine, go do whatever you need to do. Hurry up and leave. But then he revealed a vicious look in his eyes. Just don't let me catch you with an opportunity, or I'll kill you. After throwing out that line, Isaac left while pretending nothing had happened. What he did not know was that this threat had already started the countdown on his own life. There were mainly two paths for a hunter's growth. The first was trials, obtaining rich rewards through the tower's trials. The second was hunting, going outside the safe zone to kill monsters, or clearing the special dungeons on each floor to grind experience. But if you died there, then you were truly dead. And Subaru chose to grow through hunting. Today he had just dealt with a goblin and earned a few gold coins, which already counted as a decent bit of income. Back then, he had climbed upward step by step precisely through hunting. At that moment, he opened his communicator and came across a live stream. Having nothing better to do, he clicked in to take a look. To his surprise, the audience count was as high as 80,000. Even Subaru was stunned, just from the barrage of donations alone, who knew how much money this person had made. More ironically, the other party was actually streaming with the mask and name Subaru used in the past. In just a few short minutes, that person earned 20,000 credit points. The viewers threw gifts like they had gone mad. Subaru was so angry that even his fingers trembled. He might hunt for a whole year and still not earn as much as someone else made in a single stream. He knew he could not keep walking the old path. He had to go with the trend and start streaming, because only then could he really build up money. What was more, they were all imitating him. So if he, the real one, imitated himself, what kind of effect would that have? Thinking of that, Subaru slowly stood up. Then it's settled. Tonight I'll go activate streaming access. But the most urgent thing right now is to clear out all the monsters on this floor first. Very soon, 4 or 5 goblins appeared in front of him, every one of them hideous. But there was not the slightest fluctuation in Subaru's gaze. After the demonic sword's corrosion had been suppressed, the power inside his body began to flow smoothly. He was in a terrible mood right now, so these things were perfect targets to vent on. He planted one foot straight on a goblin's face. He moved as fast as a shadow, too lazy to bother with the little underlings, heading straight for the goblin leader. In the blink of an eye, he had already leapt above it. With a single flash of blade light, the goblin's head flew off on the spot. System prompt: the hidden orc nest has been cleared. That night, Subaru returned to his residence and took out that mask. He had never expected that there would come a day when he would wear it again. Next, he would start streaming in the way he was best at. A thought crossed his mind. What would it become when Subaru imitated Subaru? After all, Subaru was now the key to traffic, but the real Subaru was him. Wika from a certain streaming guild was staring at the screen. The partner beside her looked speechless. Why do you only watch Subaru streams? There are quite a few decent newcomers too. If the guild still can't find someone who can carry the traffic, just wait until you go bankrupt. Wika told him to shut up. The reason she kept watching Subaru streams was because she wanted to find the real Subaru among countless imitators. Very soon, her eyes lit up, another Subaru had gone live. But when she clicked in, she discovered that she was the only viewer in the stream. Her partner completely broke down. Why do you always stare at streams with 0 viewers? Wika said in a low voice. Every time I see a newcomer start streaming in this mask, I can't help but hope. Meanwhile, Subaru started his stream and entered the second floor trial at the same time. Clear the dungeon monsters and find the exit. From time to time, he glanced at the viewer count. But after more than 10 minutes had passed, only 2 people had entered. From the way he was operating, the viewers could already tell. It looked like his first time climbing the tower. Subaru nodded. Yes, it really is my first time. That only made them more worried. If it was his first time, he might not even know the way. As he walked, a shadow appeared ahead of Subaru. A bat monster tried to ambush him while he was reading the chat. Without even lifting his head, Subaru grabbed it directly by the skull. He exerted force with his right arm and smashed it viciously into the ground. It's my first time streaming, and you still dare come disturb me? Looking for death. After the bat monster was smashed to death, he immediately gained 1 credit point. Only then did he reply to the chat. It's my first time in here, but there won't be any problem. Very soon, he stepped into the entrance of the second floor trial. At this moment, the audience in his stream had risen to 3. Someone said he was too reckless. Very few people started streaming as early as the second floor. Subaru said plainly that he was short on money and credit points and hoped everyone would support him. The viewers advised him not to be too greedy and said it would be safer to form a party. He thanked them for the suggestion, but refused directly. Forming a party would only slow down his monster-killing speed. Seeing how fearless he was, someone laughed. People who love money die most easily buried in money. Others supported him. After all, anyone who borrowed Subaru's name could become popular quickly. With a whoosh, Subaru's figure instantly vanished from where he stood. While running, he drew the blade at his waist. With one slash, the small monster in front of him was decapitated on the spot. This scene left the viewers dumbfounded. they had not even seen the path of his blade clearly. Very soon, a large swarm of bats surged out in front of him. But those bats could not even get close to him. With one horizontal sweep of his sword, more than 10 were cut down on the spot. At the same time, the viewer count rose to over 10. As he killed them, he also gained several achievement points. Not only that, he even casually taught them, "Focus and listen to the sound, and you'll be able to judge which direction they're lunging from." In just a few minutes, the bat monsters in this area had been wiped out by him. The viewers exploded at once. "You lied to us. You're not a beginner at all. You're a hardcore player, aren't you?" Subaru was still seriously reviewing whether there had been any flaws in what he had just explained. But a whole pile of people in the chat simply could not understand, and some said this was the instinct of a high-level player. Subaru continued walking deeper, wanting to save up as many achievement points as possible before leaving. Very soon, someone noticed that something was off. He had almost been walking in a straight line the whole time. Subaru explained, "It's my first time in here, and my first time streaming too, so I'm not very familiar." As he walked, he felt the density of the monsters ahead was wrong. He looked up and saw the wall covered with a dense mass of bats. In the next second, all those bats opened their eyes at the same time. The chat instantly flooded. "This guy's done for." One wealthy viewer even directly posted a task: defeat all the bats for a reward of 100 points. The moment Subaru saw that task, his eyes lit up. He had spent all day yesterday for only a few dozen points, and now a single reward was 100. Some people started mocking him. "Don't fall for it. It's bait. It's not worth dying for 100 points." But Subaru's next sentence directly set the stream ablaze. "Thanks for the extra 100 points." Inside the guild, a huge hand slammed hard onto the table. Wika's partner was on the verge of collapse. He had just taken a liking to a new streamer who had made it safely all the way to the 6th floor, only to suddenly quit, making all the donation money from before go completely to waste. Only then did he realize that Wika was still beside him, and he quickly apologized. "I was too loud just now. Sorry for disturbing you." But Wika had no time to pay attention to him. She was stunned by what she saw on the screen. She was a die-hard Subaru fan, so familiar with his movements, rhythm, and habits that it was almost frightening. The moment her partner leaned closer, she blurted out, "Subaru seems to have come back." Her partner sucked in a breath. How many monsters has this guy killed exactly? At this moment, Subaru's stream had already reached 15 viewers. Under his slaughter, the bat monsters had almost been completely wiped out. He remembered Shu's question from his previous life. Even if you change the path of your sword midway, your breathing and line of sight never waver. It looks as if from the start you only ever swung one strike. Are you calculating the flow of your opponent's movements and planning your response in advance? But Subaru had never understood any of that, nor did he ever think so much. He was simply fighting in his own way. If you can't even do this, that would be the strange part. Shu had refuted him directly. Ordinary people can't do it. Shu had even complained about him before. The key to communication is looking the other person in the eye and saying things clearly. So Subaru explained his combat logic to the chat. When one-eyed bats attack, they always charge headfirst, and the more there are, the more openings they create. As he spoke, he slashed out once as a live demonstration. Like this, and it solved. He explained it seriously and demonstrated it cleanly, but he had no idea whether the viewers could understand. As expected, the stream completely exploded. This explanation was basically no explanation at all. "I'm on the 4th floor, and I'm getting taught by a 2nd floor beginner. It feels like you're teaching me that, as long as you move your legs, you can walk." Subaru sheathed his blade and only felt that communicating with them was far too exhausting. Someone reminded him not to forget to claim the points. If the chat had not reminded him, he really might have forgotten. He picked up his phone and prepared to claim the points. But once he opened the phone, he did not know what to tap, and awkwardly paused for a second. The viewers got anxious. "Hurry up and claim them." Subaru felt a little embarrassed. "It's my first time streaming, so I'm not very good at claiming points." The whole chat immediately lost it. He really was a newcomer. Following the chat's step-by-step instructions, he finally managed to claim them successfully. After finishing that, he continued toward the next area, which was also the final section of this floor. At this point, he had 150 points in hand and 37 achievement points. A sudden scream rang out inside the streaming guild building. Wika used only one word to describe this new streamer: insane. "This person is definitely Subaru reincarnated. We have to pull him into the guild." Her partner looked speechless. "Wika's acting up again. If someone were really that strong, why would he ever look at us?" The moment Subaru was mentioned, she always lost control. Wika already looked as if she had fallen into it completely. "My head feels dizzy. Is this what youth feels like?" Her partner suddenly shouted, "No way. You can't seriously be thinking of trying to recruit that guy, can you?" Wika said outright that yes, she was going to recruit him. "You don't agree?" Her partner explained. He is a little special, but he's just a newcomer who's only just started and has no viewers. He doesn't meet our recruitment standards. Of course Wika understood the rules, but she still intended to recruit him. She trusted her own judgment. She had never misjudged someone. She did not say it out loud, but she was almost certain. This person was the genuine Subaru. Only his appearance and form had changed, but that oppressive presence and that combat rhythm were almost exactly the same. At that moment, Subaru arrived before a massive door. This should be the end of the dungeon. Once he crossed it, he could go to the next floor. With a slight push of his hand, the great door opened. Inside, sure enough, there was a big one. As the door opened, a werewolf was sitting inside. It was Greg the Wolf Warrior, an extremely terrifying opponent, especially because of his one-hit kill attack power. The live stream immediately warned Subaru. This guy was absurdly strong, and some people had been stuck here 8 times before finally clearing it. The system also issued a notification. As long as you earn the Wolf Warrior's approval, you may pass through the gate and enter the trial. The Wolf Warrior was not a monster created to be hunted. They assessed a hunter's strength, confirmed whether the challenger had passed the initial dungeon, and as gatekeepers decided whether that person could continue onward. Very soon, Subaru received a donation task: defeat the Wolf Warrior for a reward of 3,000 credit points. He froze on the spot. 3,000 credit points was something he would not even have dared imagine. Who exactly had placed that order? And by now, the viewers in his stream had already risen to 20. The chat was almost unanimous in urging him to retreat and stop challenging the Wolf Warrior. Because the Wolf Warrior was monstrously strong, and up to now, no one had ever defeated him. The Wolf Warrior curled his lips into a smile. So you're today's challenger? He seemed a little curious. Did you come here alone? Subaru looked up at him, his tone direct. Are you blind? Is there anyone else around? The Wolf Warrior burst out laughing. Interesting. I can smell the aura of a great powerhouse on you. Someone in the chat scoffed. He said I smelled like the descendant of a goblin king too. But Subaru knew he was not wrong. The Wolf Warrior could distinguish a certain special scent. It was not body odor, but a person's true nature and underlying essence. The Wolf Warrior said, "You already qualify to pass through here." After saying that, he shifted aside and gave way to the path. Someone in the chat was shocked. There's actually a mode like this? First time I've seen it. Even Subaru had never encountered a situation like this in his previous life. But since I'm here, then my target is you. The Wolf Warrior paused. Shouldn't your target be the door behind me? Subaru said, I want both. But someone in my stream spent 3,000 credit points and asked me to kill you. The Wolf Warrior nodded, as expected of a man carrying the soul of a great powerhouse. At the same time, in the streaming guild building, Wika and her partner had gone to see their superior. Sitting across from them was John Tail, head of Azure Sky Entertainment's department. This new streamer you're talking about, how many viewers does he have now? Her partner looked a little awkward. Around 20. But Wika said with great certainty, it's already 30 now. She felt absolutely no shame over that number. The supervisor frowned. You came running to me over 20 or 30 viewers? You think I didn't notice you gambling during work hours? I told you to find someone with potential, and you bring me someone with only 20 viewers? Wika corrected him directly. 30. The supervisor was speechless. Don't get hung up on meaningless details like that. Wika twisted the knife further. I just sneaked another look, and now it's already over 40. The growth rate is pretty fast. That sentence made the supervisor flare up. Did you even hear a word I said just now? Meanwhile, Subaru and the Wolf Warrior were also preparing to fight. The Wolf Warrior's aura erupted. You want my life? Keep dreaming. Subaru slowly drew his blade. Whether it's a dream or not, you'll know in a moment. The system panel prompted. The unnamed demonic blade is consuming the user's stamina and all attributes, and increasing power according to the amount consumed. Subaru's stamina dropped frantically, but his expression did not change. He remained calm. Because the Wedge of Greed was resisting the backlash of the unnamed demonic blade. Before long, the negative effects were forcibly suppressed, and the attributes shifted into enhancement instead. The Wolf Warrior's body suddenly moved. With one step, he vanished from where he stood. When he reappeared, his claws were already slashing toward Subaru's face. Subaru instantly drew and blocked, and as claw and blade collided, sparks flew. The Wolf Warrior suddenly withdrew his claws and gathered strength again. His claws launched into rapid consecutive strikes, whipping back and forth. At this speed, an ordinary hunter could not possibly keep up. Unfortunately, Subaru was not an ordinary hunter. The Wolf Warrior seized an opening and struck straight for Subaru's vital point. Subaru had already judged it. Meeting him head-on really was a bit disadvantageous. The Wolf Warrior laughed loudly. Now that's what a warrior should be. Subaru's figure slid off to the side, narrowly avoiding the swing. The Wolf Warrior said coldly, as you are now, you're still not my match. You want to kill me? Too arrogant. But at this moment, Subaru's charge-up was already complete. In the next instant, he brought his sword down and collided head-on with the wolf warrior, and the cave exploded with a harsh metallic screech. The live stream watched while shaking their heads. If all he can do is defend, there's no way he can beat the wolf warrior. The wolf warrior is ridiculously strong. This newbie has no chance. Reality is just that cruel. After that exchange, Subaru had been blasted into the wall by the wolf warrior, yet he had not suffered too serious an injury. Sometimes, technique is more effective than brute force. The wolf warrior said smugly, "You are not truly strong, but you have pleased me. I am willing to call you a warrior." In the next second, he spread his claws, and killing intent descended. "It's time to end this. When you come again next time, I'll wait for you to defeat me." When that claw came down, the wall behind Subaru was smashed to pieces on the spot. Unfortunately, Subaru dodged that attack with only the smallest movement. He replied coldly, "That line was supposed to be mine. And your attacks are too easy to read. As long as someone's just a little faster than you, they can dodge them." In the next second, Subaru reversed his sword and ripped open a blood-soaked wound on the wolf warrior's chest so deep that bone could be seen. The wolf warrior let out a cry of pain. Subaru did not let the opportunity pass and directly leapt up in pursuit. He swung his sword, pouring strength into his arm and pressing it to the absolute limit. One sword strike fell. Even if the wolf warrior was strong, he could not block this full power blow. Subaru's eyes were so cold they seemed hardened, and the long sword slowly slid back into its sheath. 3,000 credit points, secured. Before dying, the wolf warrior said in a low voice, "Excellent, you really are a warrior." The moment he defeated the wolf warrior, Subaru's level and every attribute rose across the board, and he obtained 500 achievement points. But he also paid a price. His injuries were not light. The live stream exploded completely. He really did it. The wolf warrior has never been killed before, and he actually died in this guy's hands. Subaru let out a long breath. With this body, fighting to this extent really was exhausting. At the same time, the viewers had risen to 56, and the popularity was still climbing. With the task completed, he received 3,000 credit points. He had not expected that in just one day. He would earn more credit points than he used to make in an entire month. He would use every bit of these assets to grow stronger. After the wolf warrior fell, the door behind him opened automatically. At that moment, a new notification popped up on the panel. Even the viewers in the stream were dumbfounded. The system had actually offered two paths. On the left was the elemental trial, and on the right was the laws of nature, for a total of 13 choices combined. More than 50 viewers were stunned on the spot, and some checked the records. Ordinarily, at most only 16 would ever appear. Subaru chose to challenge the trial of thunder, because in his previous life, that was the path he had taken. And it was exactly what the chat wanted to say. This path was the most valuable, but also the hardest. Subaru confirmed at once, Trial of Thunder. If he shrank back here, then he might as well change his name entirely. In the next second, his figure vanished from the second floor. The people in the guild building saw this scene as well. Everyone grew excited. After killing the wolf warrior, he still dared choose the Trial of Thunder. Wika immediately pressed the point to the supervisor. "Have you ever seen someone hit 60 viewers on the first day of streaming? And people usually only get 2 or 3 tasks at most, but he triggered 13. Don't you think that's the mark of a genius?" The supervisor had no choice but to admit it. Defeating the wolf warrior was already astonishing. He had never been beaten. But even so, the supervisor still felt Subaru was only a second-floor newcomer, and rashly charging into the Trial of Thunder carried enormous risk. Seeing his hesitation, Wika simply proposed a bet. "If he fails to learn thunder magic, my partner and I will work for you for 5 years without pay. But if he learns it, you sign him on the spot, and you're not allowed to go back on it." In the next second, her partner directly kicked Wika flying. "You're a gambler yourself, don't drag me into it. I don't even know this guy." The supervisor smiled. "Even if he passes the preliminaries, do you really think he has a chance?" Up to now, the only hunter who had ever learned thunder magic was Subaru himself. Wika used provocation to force the issue. "Just say it, do you dare bet or not?" Of course the supervisor dared. With a 99% chance of winning, why would he not bet? The one suffering most was the partner, whose mouth Wika covered with one hand as she forcibly staked 5 years of his salary too. At this moment, the thunder judgment was about to begin. Subaru's figure was teleported onto a battlefield. He was just about to sweep his eyes over his surroundings when human voices suddenly rang in his ears. He turned his head, and a burly man rushed over and grabbed him tightly. As the burly man tackled Subaru to the ground, a huge explosion sounded behind them. When Subaru looked up, he saw a white-skinned bald giant, absurdly huge. The man beside him roared, "What are you standing around for? Do you want to die?" Very soon, Subaru received the system task. Please defeat the Titan fragment. He could not understand it either. Why would this thing spawn here? At the same time, the giant overhead raised the massive hammer in its hand and smashed it viciously toward him. Subaru was still in shock and reacted half a beat too slowly. Even the livestream was confused. What's going on? Isn't this the Trial of Thunder? That monster should be in the Titan chapter instead. Subaru was equally surprised. Boss-class monsters were supposed to appear only in the latter half of the trial, so how had he run into one on the second floor? The giant did not care whether he was dazed or not. Its weapon came crashing down directly. But at the very instant it fell, Subaru had already left his original spot. Judging from the rhythm of that strike just now, it did not seem as strong as he remembered. If this thing was only at that level, Subaru was confident he could clear it. The man behind him was still shouting for him to run. I didn't save you just now so you could go get yourself killed. Subaru slowly drew the blade at his waist. This had to be ended quickly, so he would not be held back by other people. At the same time, the unnamed demonic blade began devouring his stamina, raising all attributes according to the amount consumed, while the wedge of greed forcibly suppressed the backlash of the demonic sword. In the next second, the boss happened to close in right before him, and Subaru's attack was already prepared. His figure flashed and shot straight forward, pushing his speed to the limit. The white giant's expression froze. It had not expected Subaru to be able to jump that high. Subaru landed behind it and seized its head in one grip. The blade stabbed directly into the back of its neck. That was its weak point, and damage there was doubled. Just as he had judged, with a single strike, he pierced straight through the white giant's throat. That shouting of yours just now was too noisy. I prefer quiet. With a flick of Subaru's wrist, blood flew from the blade. Hopefully it could keep silent for the rest of its life. Then he suddenly exerted force and dragged the giant backward to the ground. The white giant's consciousness began to blur. That was the sign of impending death. It crashed to the ground with a thunderous boom. The so-called white giant had been instantly killed by Subaru in a single blade strike. This scene stunned both the man beside him and the livestream. There was definitely something wrong with this guy. After the kill was completed, the system prompted, Titan fragment has been defeated. Stage 4 cleared. The livestream grew even more confused. This was only the 4th stage? Immediately after, Subaru leveled up. Strength and agility each increased by 2, while HP and mana also rose significantly. His achievement points also neared 400. Killing that giant had not been for nothing. Besides that, he also obtained the giant's heart and thunder armor. The big guy beside him looked like his jaw was about to drop, and the live stream exploded the same way. The system actually handed out all the rewards for this stage in one go? That generous? The big man jogged over. You actually killed the white giant? Looking at his expression, the chat burst into laughter. If you people were natives, you'd probably be scared stupid too. Subaru nodded. Killing it wasn't hard. So, I'm your savior, specially sent here to kill giants. The chat laughed even harder. That explanation sounded exactly like serious Chunyuni nonsense. After that, the big man brought Subaru back to the village to rest. The village was not large, but it was peaceful for the moment. At least no white monsters were attacking. Subaru found a place to stay at random and began checking the system storage. The viewers were unbearably curious and kept urging him to open the storage so they could see the loot. Subaru was curious too, so he reached into the storage interface. System prompt, giant heart accessory ×1 obtained. It could increase HP and recovery ability, and its appearance was a finely crafted ring. Accessories were already rare to begin with, and this kind of vitality boost was practically perfect. But what Subaru wanted most was that armor. Its properties were too crucial. In addition to defense +5, it allowed the use of Thunderstrike and granted immunity to status ailments, but it could only be used 3 times. The chat was completely stunned. Thunder armor could actually drop? Not to mention that the giant heart was a permanent item, with a value high enough that it could practically be priced however one wanted. In the next moment, Subaru put on the thunder armor, and the aura around his whole body changed. Someone in the chat posted a task. If you learn lightning, I'll pay 5,000 credit points. Thank you for your support, ma'am. I wish you smooth days every day. Another followed up, I'll add another 5,000 too, as long as you obtain thunder magic. A third person raised the offer again. I'll add 3,000 more, same condition. Most exaggerated of all, one woman directly threw out a 7,000 credit point task. Subaru's straight back unconsciously bent a little. Thank you all for your support. I will definitely obtain thunder, and I also hope you'll continue supporting me in the future. It seemed that no matter the era, it was always the same. There were always people waiting for thunder to appear again. That was normal. Thunder magic had once been usable by Subaru alone. If he could learn it, then on this point alone, he could make a killing in the streaming world. At that moment, there was a knock at his door. The visitors were a handsome blonde man and a scar-faced man. The scar-faced man spoke first. Sorry to keep you waiting. This is Sir Pelias, captain of the village night order. Subaru went out with them and learned the basic situation regarding the white giants. The attacks had been growing more frequent lately, and several nearby villages had already been tormented to the breaking point, so the Night Order remained on full-time standby, on alert 24 hours a day. To protect the villagers, they had already asked everyone to reduce unnecessary outings. Pelias smiled. In such a tense period, it truly was rare to encounter an outsider as absurdly strong as Subaru. He spoke solemnly. I heard that while I was away, you protected the village. Please allow me to thank you on behalf of the villagers. Subaru told him there was no need to be so polite. I only did what anyone would have done. Subaru knew of Pelias too. He was the symbol of the village, a knight who dared face giants head-on. Pelias said that during a scouting mission, they had discovered the giant leader, and this time they had decided to settle things once and for all. Then the two men bowed to Subaru, hoping he would lend them his aid, even if it meant dying for it. In truth, they did not need to say that. Subaru had to kill the giants anyway if he wanted to clear the mission. Even the chat sighed, Pelias, don't die. He's one of the rare good people. Hope Subaru can save him. Of course Subaru saw those comments. They were all spoiling things, because the story had already been written. If Subaru remembered correctly, Pelias was supposed to die in the next stage. Subaru slowly extended his hand, and the gesture left Pelias both surprised and delighted. Subaru told him to raise his head. I'll help you. Let's make a promise. Until all the giants are dead, none of us dies. Pelias thanked him repeatedly. With you joining us, the plan will definitely go much more smoothly. System prompt, Stage 5 begins. Mission name, Survival. Very soon, their large force set out, and by rough estimate, the marching party was close to 100 men. But at this moment, Subaru's gaze was stuck to the live stream. At first he could still make out the comments, but once the viewer count rose, the chat turned into a runaway scroll wheel, and there was no way to communicate anymore. Suddenly, Pelias in front raised his hand, signaling the whole team to stop. The scar-faced man pointed at the giant ahead. It's been wandering around here all day, like it's not afraid of us noticing at all. The thing before them was the giant leader, and one look at its size told them it would be difficult to handle. Pelias began assigning roles. He would draw its attention, and Subaru would be arranged to launch a sneak attack from behind. But Subaru directly placed a hand on his shoulder and told him to wait. Subaru told Pelias to stay alert. Something's wrong. This feels like a trap. That leader in front of them was clearly bait. There were absolutely not just 10 giants nearby. The moment he finished speaking, violent tremors came from underground. Everyone's faces changed instantly. They were surrounded. Subaru also fully confirmed it. The leader up ahead was the trap meant to lure them in. In the next moment, the leader suddenly opened its eyes wide, its enormous eyeballs locking onto them. Immediately after, giants began appearing one after another beside it, bursting up from underground. From the very beginning, they had never been able to get close to the leader. The moment anyone approached, the giant horde would reveal itself. And there were absurdly too many of them, far beyond what their force could withstand head-on. Pelias's face went deathly pale. He had thought this was an opportunity, but instead he had dragged everyone into a dead end. After the white giants appeared, they began tearing through the soldiers in a slaughter. Some tried to fight, but more had already had all courage sucked out of them by fear. The man who had just been shouting was torn apart alive by a white giant on the spot. That sight crushed everyone's hearts. The giant split its mouth in a grotesque grin. And lowly humans like you wanted to ambush us? Ridiculous. Pelias roared, everyone, retreat to the foot of the mountain. The team immediately collapsed into flight, with no one caring about anything else. Life was what mattered most. The white giants let out a unified roar at the sky. They were excited. They could finally toy with humans again. Before long, the team suffered more casualties. Someone wanted to run back and save a companion, but 2 others held him back desperately. Calm down. If we don't leave now, it'll be too late. During that delay alone, the white giants were already right in front of them. Pelias shouted, all of you, go. We'll hold them here. This is an order, full retreat. He forced them to think of the people waiting for them at home, to think of this village. This isn't the end. We'll regroup and come back again. Those words pulled a little reason back into them, and they fled down the mountain in panic. On the mountain, only the scar-faced man and Pelias remained, but Pelias insisted that the scar-faced man leave. The team would still have to rely on him in the future. Just then, Subaru slowly walked toward them. Pelias froze. He shouted to Subaru, brother, you go too. Go back, rebuild order, and face the giants again later. I'll hold them here. But Subaru drew his sword. That line just now was mine. You and the Scarface go. Leave this place to me. Subaru pressed again. I finished speaking. So why are you still not running? Pelias could not understand at all. Subaru simply made it brutally clear. If you stay here, I can't fight freely. You're in the way. If you don't leave, then we'll die here together. Pelias was too loyal to abandon an outsider and escape alone. Subaru's voice turned even colder. Don't make me say it a third time. If you stay, you'll only get me killed too. At last, Peleus gritted his teeth and turned to run. "I'll gather the remaining men. You absolutely have to hold on until I come back." That was exactly what Subaru wanted. Once Peleus left, he could avoid the death trap originally waiting for him, and Subaru could also kill without restraint. As he ran, Peleus kept looking back. "Brother, I owe you my life. Hold on for me. I'll definitely come back and save you." And the giant horde also began pressing forward, lines of golden light rising across their bodies. Subaru charged straight at them, activating two major skills at once. When one giant was about to catch up to Peleus, Subaru accelerated once more. "Your opponent is me. Without my permission, you're not allowed to leave." In the next second, he directly cut off that giant's leg, making sure it could never catch up again. Subaru began continuously weakening their speed, severing the legs of the foremost giants one by one. The advance of the giant horde was forcibly pinned down by him. The white giants had never expected that one tiny human could deal this kind of damage. In only a short while, he had already killed 2 giants and gained 20 achievement points. Even though this was only a trial, he still was not quite used to this feeling of being left alone. He began remembering the tacit coordination he once had while fighting side by side with his teammates. Meanwhile, Peleus was racing madly back toward the village, preparing to gather reinforcements. As he ran, he suddenly stopped. There were no pursuers behind him. Could it be that all those white giants had been held back by Subaru alone? Unwillingness surged up in him, and he gritted his teeth and sped up. He had to bring people back to save Subaru as quickly as possible, at the very least to help him hold on until he arrived. What he did not know was that, although it looked as if Subaru had been trapped in a siege, in reality it was Subaru alone who had surrounded all of them. The chat felt Subaru was completely insane. They had never seen a fight like this before. It was practically suicidal. What was more, there was no way the combat power of Peleus's village could arrive in time to support him. But now, aside from Subaru, even Peleus and his subordinates, who had originally been fated to die, might survive under Subaru's influence. Very soon, 2 white giants threw punches at Subaru. Subaru assumed an attacking stance. The moment the fists fell, he sidestepped and at the same time slashed open the chest of one of them. Immediately after, he made a huge lateral step and severed the other one's leg. If he wanted to win easily, he had to limit their movement first. With Subaru's damage output now, killing one with a single sword strike was no longer difficult. The real problem was, how long could he rely on the sword? So his first objective was to lock onto the leader. Only once the leader fell would this truly be over. Subaru stepped onto a giant's shoulder and swept his gaze around, searching for the leader's position. With a casual slash, he split open the head of the giant beneath him and gained another 10 points. He was moving faster and faster now, and no longer had time to deal with the lesser mobs. He had to find the leader as soon as possible. At that moment, one giant was rather cunning and opened its huge mouth, waiting for Subaru to jump in. But what it got instead was Subaru planting a foot on its face. Subaru repeatedly stepped on the giants' faces, borrowing force to shift and leap continuously. That posture of daring to charge, daring to fight, daring to wager his life made even the people in the live stream suck in cold breaths. The streamer is too ruthless. One wrong step and he'd die. Aerial combat is Subaru's trademark, and now here comes another one. System prompt: Wedge of Greed is resisting the backlash of the unnamed demonic blade. Users' HP and mental power are recovering. Subaru was delighted. His stamina consumption had not changed, but his recovery had finally begun catching up. Equipment really could change the course of battle. He had not yet reached his limit. He had to kill the leader before he did. Very soon, Subaru locked onto the leader's position ahead. If he got just a little closer, he would be able to kill it. But at that moment, the leader revealed a chilling smile. That smile made Subaru's heart tense. In the next second, the leader began its counterattack. If he could not finish it in one burst, then the one who would die would be Subaru. Its attack rapidly finished charging. If that weapon struck him, Subaru would be turned straight into minced flesh. For the first time, Subaru felt uncertain, and inwardly suppressed his panic in a low voice. It has to work. In the next moment, he snapped his fingers without hesitation. System prompt: One usage of Thunder magic release has been successfully consumed. Immediately after, golden light crawled over his body. There's only one chance, so let thunder ring across the battlefield. In the next second, countless bolts of lightning burst out from Subaru's body. The white giants felt their eyes stabbed with pain, and the peals of thunder shook their eardrums to the point of splitting. Even the leader was the same, the pain in both ears almost driving it mad. It cursed furiously, damned human. But just then, Subaru had already arrived above its head. To be safe, he let the unnamed demonic blade continue devouring his stamina, pushing its power to the maximum. He converted every bit of the remaining stamina in his body into strength and poured it all into the edge of the sword. With a wet sound, he dealt the leader a heavy, crippling blow in one slash. The leader's life force rapidly declined. 2 more strikes would finish it. The leader had never imagined that it would die at the hands of a weak human. Subaru seized the opening and stabbed 3 more times in succession. With a heavy thud, the giant leader finally collapsed. System prompt: Stage 5 survival mode cleared. Extraordinary achievement attained. Subaru leveled up, and his strength and agility increased accordingly. Besides that, vitality +2 and mana +1. The live stream went wild. They were seeing someone clear this floor for the first time. If the streamer had not started broadcasting from the 2nd floor, they might never have seen it in their entire lives. Some people also felt a chill. This might not be good news. He had defeated something that was never supposed to be defeated. If this were a manga protagonist, this would be where a cool final shot should close the scene, but reality was not like that. Lightning still flickered across the sky, but it was only ordinary storm weather. The giants ahead recovered from the lightning shock. What Subaru had to face next was their counterattack. Subaru lowered his head to look at the demonic blade in his hand. Wedge of Greed had not been able to completely suppress the weakening effect of the unnamed demonic blade. He leapt down from the leader's head, since this was a dead end, then he would just keep killing. Even if he cleared this stage, the monsters would not disappear. The monsters had to wait until the trial itself ended before they would vanish. He had used this mechanic before, but he had not expected the backlash to fall onto himself this time. The corners of his mouth kept bleeding, and the power inside his body felt as if it were running dry. The white giants also saw through his weakness, and cruel smiles appeared on their faces. But dramatically enough, the sky, which had been gloomy just moments ago, suddenly gained several thicker bolts of lightning. In the next second, all the lightning struck toward the same direction. Subaru suddenly felt his entire body filled to the brim with power. Every one of those bolts had struck him. At that moment, he seemed like a god of thunder descending. Even just standing there, the pressure exploding from him was almost no less than the state he had just been in while consuming his skill. While Subaru was locked in fierce battle with the white giants, in that hut in the forest, a woman sat at the doorway, staring at a live stream. Her face had been dark the whole time, yet another little brat was cashing in on Subaru's fame. Suddenly, Shu also walked out of the hut. With confusion in his voice, he asked, "Why are you sitting out here?" The woman said flatly, "The sunlight is good today. Only like this does it count as truly enjoying time." Shu lowered his voice. "This all needs to end." The woman said, "Yes, within a year at most." Shu instantly got angry. "What do you mean, at most a year? What exactly are you talking about? Why do you always act like this whenever things get serious?" The more he thought about it, the more wrong it felt, so he simply walked over to her side to see what she was staring at. The woman explained that she was watching a new streamer who called himself Subaru. Hearing Subaru's name, Shu's heart jolted. "Boss, came back?" The woman told him not to get excited. This was obviously not that Subaru. It was just a streamer borrowing Subaru's name while challenging a trial. The woman added, "You understand it too, don't you? If Subaru had really survived that crisis, then Itsuki would have disappeared long ago. How could he have hidden for so many years?" Whether she wanted to admit it or not, she had to. Subaru had most likely died. Exactly when are you going to accept that? Shu turned away directly, unwilling to continue. "That's enough for today. Don't talk to me about this again." No matter what, he refused to believe Subaru was dead. The woman shouted, suppressing her anger, "How long are you going to keep hiding in that child's shadow? It's time to move on." Shu turned back and shot a question at her. "What about you? Have you really let go?" He snatched the phone from her hand. "If you really had, then you wouldn't be checking Subaru streams every day." He held the phone up in front of her, and the woman still tried to explain, "I'm just passing the time." But in the next second, her whole body froze. "That's impossible." Shu also could not help glancing at it. "You still like watching streams even now? Let me see what kind of person this is." With that one look, his jaw nearly dropped to the ground. The second one had appeared. At the same time, the thunder art inside Subaru continued to surge outward. None of the white giants could get close to him. Not only that, their bodies were also being continuously scorched by the thunder art. Gradually, the thunder art inside Subaru settled down. This meant he had completely mastered it. The live stream lost control completely. A second Subaru is going to be born today? Only then did they realize, to obtain the thunder skill, he had to kill that enormous leader. Listening to the discussion in the chat, Subaru's eyes grew more wary. This was not a place where they should be learning this. The system panel prompted, "The lightning skill requires HP and MP to activate. It can be upgraded by collecting thunder fragments." But for Subaru, being able to stay alive now was already lucky enough, and the timing of the trial being interrupted was just right as well. Immediately after, the system popped up 2 notifications in succession. He had received 5,000 and 7,000 credit points. Those points were all donations from viewers based on completed tasks. At this moment, the total number of points in his possession had already exceeded 20,000. He had heard that one should put on a thank you performance after receiving tips, so he chose to continue the trial. Ahead, the giant horde surged toward Subaru like a flood. Subaru's gaze turned cold and hard. Today, he would let them witness that thing. In the next second, he directly spent 20,000 credit points to raise the level of Wedge of Greed. The instant the upgrade was complete, he clearly felt it. The backlash was being reversed, and was even beginning to turn into a buff. He almost wanted that power to fill his entire body on the spot. And at this moment, he had already compressed all the lightning into his right hand. He could have stopped here, but he wanted to indulge himself once. In the next moment, Subaru suddenly stepped forward and faced the giants head-on, without the slightest intention of retreating. The giants ahead showed smug smiles, but they did not know. They had already entered the countdown to their deaths. Immediately after, Subaru poured all the lightning into the sword body. System prompt: lightning has been infused into the unnamed demonic blade. Subaru laughed aloud. The timing's perfect. Now let's see whether you can withstand this slash. As the blade light fell, a scarlet sharp radiance burst outward ahead. That one strike directly cut all the frontline giants in half at the waist before they could even try to block. And that slash still did not stop. It kept pushing forward. Sword energy could not turn, but this strike had been a horizontal sweep. The giants in front had nowhere to run. 10 seconds later, the red glow around Subaru slowly dispersed. He cursed under his breath. Damn it, he had gone too hard just now and drained all his strength. He should have saved a little energy to pull back, but now he might not even be able to walk. But fortunately, after that strike, the giants had all become corpses. Subaru drove the longsword fiercely into the ground and only then barely managed to support himself in a kneeling posture without collapsing. At the same time, a patch of shadow appeared behind him. It was the scar-faced man and the others, who had returned after leaving. They had indeed kept their promise and come back to save him. When Pelias saw the scene before him, he froze, his eyes full of disbelief. In the next second, he rushed in front of Subaru. "Benefactor, are you all right?" Hearing the voice, Subaru turned back. "That's good, they really came." The moment those words fell, his mind spun with dizziness. His vision quickly blurred. He was about to lose consciousness. But Pelias really is an idiot. He actually turned back. If I hadn't killed all these giants, wouldn't they all have died here? Meanwhile, inside the guild building, two people stared nervously at Wika. After seeing Subaru clear the stage, Wika said nothing, sat on the sofa, and covered her face with both hands. Her partner asked the supervisor, was he really worth going this far for? "Don't ask me. I don't understand women's hearts." Wika's body trembled slightly as she said in a low voice, "It's over. I think I've fallen in love." A few years ago, when she had still been a little girl, she had felt this once before. The moment she thought of the message she had just sent Subaru, she began to get nervous. Was it too cold? Did it sound too official? Should she have added some more human-sounding words so the chance of a reply would be higher? Her partner was speechless. That message just now was official business. Do you actually like him or what? Just say it clearly. The boss was equally speechless. You kept insisting on recruiting him into the guild. Don't tell me it was because you want to pursue him? Wika explained with a red face. I can't control it. Before becoming his manager, I was already his die-hard fan. And I already told you, signing him would absolutely not be a loss. I can guarantee that. Think about it. The power of thunder that only Subaru could control is now in his hands, which means he might be the second Subaru. Her partner could not care less about any of that. As long as his salary was safe, that was enough for him. The boss also nodded in satisfaction. No wonder no one else could learn it. He has to be watched closely. Her partner's phone suddenly rang, and Wika's heart leaped. Had Subaru replied? And indeed that was the case. Subaru had read their message. But in the next second, she felt as if she had fallen into an ice cellar. Read, but no reply. Wika froze completely, as if she had stopped breathing. He actually died standing up. First time I've seen that. Should we buy her a coffin? Probably not. At the same time, in any sports room, a player who specialized in analyzing hunter combat was streaming. He had secured his position by defeating countless rivals through sharp insight and hardcore commentary. His name was Hawkeyes. Hawkeyes had watched footage of many competitors and given sharp analyses, including Amon, a dark horse who had burst onto the scene and torn through the tower at astonishing speed, even being called the second Subaru. Even Itsuki, the former member of Blue Eyes, was on his list. Now he fights as Earth's representative player, so the pressure on his shoulders must be immense. Today we'll break down his skills. Of course, the legendary Subaru, who transcends eras, won't be absent either. No matter what anyone says, lightning belongs to that man. But when you think of a name no hunter could ever catch up to, who comes to mind? At this moment, the one occupying everyone's mind is probably only him, Subaru. Today, Hawkeyes was preparing to use Hawkeye's lock-on to dig deep into the hottest current player, Subaru. Someone in the chat questioned whether he was just chasing hype, that newbie has only just reached the second floor. But Hawkeye said that beginners deserved a chance too, and people should not kill them with criticism right away. Being a streamer was hard. He clicked into Subaru's page, pulled up the stream footage, and blurted out, "This is insane. What on earth is happening right now?" After watching all the footage, sweat had formed on his forehead. That concentration was terrifying. He had just learned the skill, yet he could already use it to this extent. It did not seem human at all. Even more outrageous was that he could tell Subaru was controlling the skill by injecting only exactly the amount of energy needed, not wasting even a trace of power. To do that required ultimate microcontrol and judgment, and throughout the entire battle, he had not made a single mistake. In the end, he gave his evaluation. This guy will definitely become a major figure. From now on, I'll be keeping my eyes on him. Everyone was waiting for this newcomer to grow. Once he reached the 10th floor, maybe he could even form a party, and among everyone in the livestream, fewer than 10 people could actually understand that battle. Just then, one comment entered Hawkeye's sight. No final review this time? He had almost forgotten. When he evaluated hunters, he always did a final review, meaning he judged their upper limit. But this time, he gave a completely different conclusion. Based on the control he had shown so far, this newcomer had already surpassed Subaru at his peak. Elsewhere, Subaru abruptly opened his eyes in the middle of unconsciousness. He sat up at once, not expecting that he had actually fallen into deep sleep. Fortunately, a system prompt appeared. Stage 6 has begun, and fatigue has been restored. Pause the trial? There were two necessary conditions for pausing a trial. First, the previous stage had to be completed while the next stage had not yet begun. Second, fatigue had to be fully restored. After that, Subaru reopened his live stream on his phone. But he had not expected that the stream would already have over 700 viewers. He had no idea when it had grown to so many. Facing the camera, Subaru spoke. "Sorry, I need to rest for a day. Next stream, see you the day after tomorrow." Immediately after, the viewers received a prompt. Subaru has ended the live stream. As a blue light descended, Subaru's body vanished from where he stood. When he appeared again, he had arrived in a vast white area. This was the judgment waiting room. Directly in front of him stood a door in silence. But Subaru did not hurry over. Instead, he first opened his back-end messages and saw a cooperation invitation sent by a streaming guild. Subaru slowly removed his mask, thinking it was just junk mail. But in the next second, he froze. It seemed to be from the biggest entertainment company of all. 2 hours later, Subaru arrived at this cafe. He casually found a seat and sat down, then began looking into the company's background. It was a massive entertainment company whose executives invested money to push streamers into rapid growth. He had never expected the world to become like this. Even a company like this had appeared, and on such an absurd scale. Another pop-up appeared on his phone, the content chaotic like spam flooding in. Hawkeye's next target was the newcomer Subaru, and rumor had it that his control had already surpassed the original. Looks like that guy Hawkeye's is mixed up with Azure Sky too. He had always been blunt and never pulled punches. But from Subaru's perspective, Hawkeye's really did have a sharp eye for people. He had actually locked onto him at first glance. Just then, another set of footsteps entered the cafe. The newcomer had also seen Hawkeye's buzz, and felt even more irritated, muttering a few curses under his breath. Because Hawkeye's had commented on him, in terms of control alone, he might already have surpassed Subaru at his peak. That line made the man extremely uncomfortable. Give me a break. He's just a newbie who barely made it to the second floor. After reading that sentence, he was both furious and disdainful, even feeling that Hawkeye's had gone blind. Once he cleared the second floor, he would go dig Hawkeye's eyes out. Immediately after, he spat a mouthful of phlegm viciously onto the floor. For him, today had already been bad enough. But after entering, he found out it could get even worse, because he saw an old acquaintance. At this moment, Subaru had not noticed his arrival, and even if he had, he would not have cared. But that man felt like he was cursed, running into Subaru wherever he went, opening his phone and seeing Subaru again, irritated to the point of exploding. So the more he looked at Subaru, the more unpleasant he found him, and he wanted to use him as an outlet. There happened to be an empty seat next to Subaru, so he walked straight over. This guy did not behave himself at all. With one shove of his elbow, he spilled coffee directly all over Subaru. Subaru immediately stood up. "What's your problem? Are you blind?" He looked closely and saw that it was Isaac. This guy was back to picking a fight again? But Subaru did not have time to waste on him now. "Well, if it isn't adorable Subaru. I keep running into you lately. Looks like this floor is truly pathetically small." Subaru merely glanced at him once, then continued fiddling with his phone, preparing to leave. As he stood up to go, Isaac said in a mocking tone, "Want me to buy you a new cup? You're always broke anyway, so you should be grateful to me, right?" Subaru ignored him directly. That instantly made fury flare in Isaac's eyes. In his mind, Subaru was just a nobody, yet that nobody dared look down on him. When Subaru reached the door, Isaac called out to stop him. "Did I say you could leave?" Subaru turned and stared at him. "Do you need something else? If not, don't waste my time." That sentence lit Isaac up completely, and he grabbed Subaru by the collar. "Don't get too cocky. Wipe that smug look off your face. Otherwise I'll beat you so hard your teeth scatter all over the floor, just like I used to crush you before." Subaru quietly said, "Sorry." At the same time, he placed a hand on Isaac's wrist. With a flex of his arm, he flung Isaac's hand away. "I don't have time to play with you. If you want trouble, go find someone else." Isaac's heart jolted. Had this guy's grip always been this absurdly strong? His hand was still trembling from the force. Subaru stopped bothering with him and turned to leave. "As for hurting your hand just now, let's call that compensation for my coffee." That line twisted Isaac's expression with rage. "When did you get this arrogant? Get back here." The only reply he got was the sound of Subaru closing the door. Isaac let out a long breath. He had originally wanted to climb the tower quietly this time, but now he was truly enraged. "Looks like if I don't beat the hell out of you, you won't know who I am. Not just you, but that new streamer too. You two Subarus are seriously going to piss me to death." After leaving the cafe, Subaru suddenly remembered something. He still had not replied to that entertainment company. Thinking of it, he immediately sent a reply to the guild. "We'll be meeting very soon." Not long after, Subaru headed for the dungeon and arrived at the room where the exiled lizard boss was hiding. His wedge of greed was still resisting the backlash of the unnamed demonic blade, and his body was also adapting to that impact little by little. Above his head, a little flame suddenly appeared. The flame rapidly swelled, and it was actually the exiled lizard boss itself. Other hunters called it the demon lizard. The demon lizard looked as if it had smelled something delicious, saliva dripping continuously from the corners of its mouth. To avoid an accident like last time, once he truly mastered lightning, he had to run a test, and he would use this exiled lizard as the trial target. Facing this lizard, Subaru decided to use 90% of his power and see whether he could kill it in one blow. In the next second, his feet burst with force, and golden lightning exploded beneath them. Immediately after, he leapt up and met the demon lizard head-on. For Subaru, killing it was not difficult. He had killed this kind of monster too many times before. The demon lizard opened its huge mouth, and fire magic began gathering inside. In the next second, a massive fireball blasted straight toward him. But there was not the slightest retreat in Subaru's eyes. He pressed the power of lightning into the sword, making every slash deadlier. System prompt: lightning has been infused into the unnamed demonic blade. In the next second, Subaru cleaved apart its fire attack with one strike. System prompt: wedge of greed is resisting lightning backlash, resistance failed, skill level is rising. And at this moment, Subaru had already arrived directly above the demon lizard. He poured all the power in his body into his arm. This strike would be fatal. In an instant, the demon lizard's body was split cleanly in two by the lightning slash. After successfully killing the exiled lizard, his level and all his attributes rose, and his mana also recovered. Just as he finished dealing with the loot and was preparing to leave, a figure appeared in front of him. Subaru's eyes instantly turned cold. This person carried killing intent. The man slowly approached and stopped in front of him. "So late, and you're still hanging around here. Planning to go out hunting?" The one blocking Subaru's way was Isaac. Subaru only felt that this guy was stubborn to a frightening degree, actually following him all the way here just to make trouble. Isaac had originally wondered whether he should just let it go, but the more he thought about it, the more suffocated with anger he felt, and in the end he still came after Subaru. Isaac spoke. "How about we settle this today?" Subaru sneered inwardly. "Settle it? How exactly did you plan to settle it?" At the same time, elsewhere, Hawkeyes walked into a shop. As soon as he entered, someone raised a hand to signal to him. That person was the guild president. Hawkeyes had been called here this time precisely to get a clear reading on Subaru. Hawkeyes laughed. "Long time no see. How have your stream numbers been lately?" Hawkeye said things had been average recently, and almost all his viewers were familiar old faces, so the numbers had not risen much. The president took a sip of tea. In truth, that was the most stable state, and stable things did not fall easily. Hawkeyes urged him to get to the point. He was busy, not here to drink tea with the president. The president asked directly, "That Subaru you commented on yesterday, were you serious about all that?" Hawkeyes was a little surprised. "You came to ask about that newcomer? Then I'll say the same thing again. Purely in terms of talent, he's stronger than Subaru at his peak. But whether he can truly climb to another height, that's hard to say. You know what I mean, right?" The president nodded. "Looks like there really is a need to recruit him into the streaming guild." The moment he said that, even Hawkeyes could not help being startled. Boss really does have a vicious eye. If you ask me, before he completely blows up, hurry and poach him over. Let him name his conditions. The president agreed as well. Hearing Hawkeyes put it that way, he could no longer stay calm. And the president's first step was this: once Subaru joined the guild, he would arrange for him to collaborate with Hawkeyes. Only by pushing up his fame and popularity could the guild reap greater profits. Meanwhile, in the forest, Isaac was still roaring. "Now it's just the two of us. Don't even think about running away today." Subaru nodded. "Yes, it's just the two of us. So what exactly do you want?" What Isaac wanted to tell Subaru was his purpose in coming here: to smash to pieces that smug, out-of-control look on Subaru's face. He pressed closer, continuing to sneer. "A guy like you who climbed this far on luck. Don't tell me you actually think you've become Subaru. You want to learn lightning like that streamer too?" Then he tensed his fingers and cursed through gritted teeth. "That bastard Subaru. If he's dead, then he should stay in his grave and rot obediently. People like you really disgust me." Subaru did not understand why this guy hated Subaru to such an extent. More ironically, even Subaru himself had never imagined that he would arrive in an era filled everywhere with fake Subarus. At that moment Subaru spoke. "I want to ask you something. Why do you hate me? Just because my name is Subaru? If it's only because of the name, then why do you hate it so much? Clearly a lot of people like that name." After hearing Subaru's question, Isaac's expression visibly faltered. Then he asked coldly, "Do you know who my father is?" "He is Reinhardt, a high-level player on the 9th floor." Hearing that name, Subaru's pupils contracted sharply, and his heart thudded hard. He knew that man all too well. Back then he had been on the 9th floor, and he had even crossed swords with Reinhardt, a swordsman known for his one-hit kill. What shocked everyone even more was this: at the time, Subaru defeated him with a single strike. As a powerhouse of the 9th floor, how could he possibly accept being defeated in one strike? From start to finish, it had taken only 3 seconds. The moment Subaru spoke that name aloud, Isaac completely exploded. "You don't have the right to say my father's name directly." Only then did Subaru finally understand. "So the reason you hate me is because of that one-hit kill, swordsman. But have you ever thought about it? How much pain I suffered because of that? Under your torment, I almost died once." 2 fireballs instantly condensed in Isaac's hands. "Shut your mouth. Say one more word and I'll kill you." The flames spread continuously, completely sealing off Subaru's retreat behind him. Subaru sighed inwardly. There was no avoiding it now. And he could feel it. Isaac was serious. He truly wanted to kill. Sure enough, Isaac roared, "I'll bury you in the sea of fire. The lizardman's lair will be your grave." I'm sick to death of the name Subaru, and of that blue-eyed squad of his too, a bunch of trash who all died with him in the end anyway. The moment he heard that, Subaru's chest tightened instantly. Insulting him was one thing, but insulting his teammates, not allowed. In Isaac's eyes, the deaths of the Blue Eyes members were deserved. At that thought, he even felt a little exhilarated. Those people must be paying for themselves somewhere in some corner of hell. In the next moment, he threw out a fireball. "Your name is Subaru too, so go die together with him." With a boom, the flames surged skyward with terrifying force. After using his strongest blow, Isaac let out a long breath. He covered his face, as though regretting it. He had been wrong, he had underestimated himself, and had actually wiped Subaru out with one move. But when he lowered his hand, satisfaction appeared on his face instead. "Now that I've dealt with you, next I'll go find that masked brat." Yet Subaru's voice suddenly exploded in his mind. "By mask, do you mean this one?" There in the depths of the smoke, Subaru's figure stood straight and upright. And at this moment, he had already put on the mask, becoming the true Subaru. Isaac could not believe it. "You actually blocked my attack with your bare hands?" That figure before the sea of fire looked like a god of slaughter descending. Instinctively, he felt something was wrong. The person in front of him was absolutely not the Subaru he had known before. But in the instant he lost focus, lightning gathered beneath Subaru's feet. In the blink of an eye, Subaru vanished from where he stood. In the next second, he appeared in front of Isaac at the limit of speed. And then Subaru slammed a fist brutally into his abdomen. The force of that punch made Isaac's pupils widen. How could he be this strong? After taking that punch, Isaac dropped heavily to his knees. In the next instant, blood spilled from the corner of his mouth. Subaru looked down at him from above. "When someone destroys them, I lose control." Isaac still could not believe it. "How are you here?" He refused to accept that Subaru had become this strong. At that moment, Subaru slowly removed the mask. That blow just now was only a surprise test. "Who do you think is standing in front of you? The crying Subaru you used to bully? That streamer Subaru wearing a mask? Or Blue Eyes Subaru?" A sneer squeezed out from the corner of Isaac's mouth. "Cut the crap. Are you trying to say you're that streamer Subaru?" Even now, he still looked down on Subaru. "Don't joke around. Lightning isn't anything special. If trash like you can learn it, then I can learn it too." In the next second, flames silently condensed in his hand. "You don't really think that with this little bit of skill, you can beat me, do you?" Subaru only found his stubbornness laughable. The facts were right in front of him, and he was still denying them. As he spoke, the flames in Isaac's palm grew denser and denser. He was going to grab Subaru in one move and crush him to death completely. But what he had not expected was this: in barely a second, his hand flew into the air. Subaru's lightning flash had directly severed his arm. The moment he saw that, Isaac turned ice-cold all over, his soul itself trembling. In truth, from the moment he insulted Subaru's companions, he had already been doomed to die. The fact that Subaru had been willing to listen to his nonsense this long was already the last mercy. He could not understand the meaning in Subaru's words. He could not understand the meaning in Subaru's words. He chewed over them again and again, and finally forced out a terrifying guess. The person before him was absolutely not the Subaru from before. From when exactly had this guy become someone else? He could not find the answer. But at least now Isaac understood one thing. The one standing before him was Blue Eyes Subaru. But why exactly? Why would someone who should have died appear inside another person's body? In the next second, Subaru brought down his blade. After listening to the last few words from Isaac that could barely count as decent, he cleanly ended his life. Game time is over. After doing all of that, Subaru turned and slowly walked away. What he had done to Isaac today already counted as service beyond what was required. Not just anyone was worthy of treatment like this. After Isaac fell, Subaru said quietly to himself, "Let this life count as payment for borrowing this body." 2 hours later, in a restaurant, the staff were all staring at Subaru with looks of disbelief. What exactly is this guy doing? Dressed like this, he looks like some crazed Subaru fan. Subaru had one principle: streamer Subaru could not show his face, and under no circumstances could his opponents be allowed to know what he looked like. That was a huge advantage. A moment later, a woman also walked into the restaurant. "Sorry to keep you waiting." She was visibly nervous. "I'm the one who contacted you. I'm Wika from the Streaming Guild, and also your future manager." Subaru immediately stood up to greet her. "I'm the new streamer Subaru." Wika was obviously very happy after seeing him. She leaned in to look Subaru over, and grew even more excited inside. Too similar. Practically identical. Looks like he really survived from 20 years ago, and he's covering his face with a mask for a reason. If he doesn't say it, I won't expose it. Subaru asked, "Is there something wrong with me?" She quickly replied, No, nothing. Let's continue discussing business." The president had warned her before. Whether she could win his trust on the first meeting was crucial, and no matter what she did, she absolutely could not seem unreliable. But she felt she had already messed up the moment they met. The more she thought about it, the more frustrated she became, her fingers almost clawing her hair into a mess. To keep things from getting awkward, Wika hurriedly changed the subject. "Were you a Subaru fan before too?" Subaru nodded. "Yes, I'm a die-hard fan, but I'm not the real one, so you can relax." But it was as if she had not heard him. "I'm a die-hard Subaru fan too. And now, I'm your fan too." Then Subaru heard her pour out a huge stream of words in one breath. "I've been watching ever since your job hunting stream started. I may even have been your first viewer. The first time you soloed the One-Eyed Bats, clearing Greg's trial. That match where you chose a fair duel instead of taking the easy route. My palms were sweating when you faced the Titan fragment, but you instantly beat the giant with your movement. That moment was so satisfying." Subaru felt his scalp go numb. She was not just a viewer, she was more like an extremely high-intensity stalker, remembering things more clearly than he did himself. Subaru forced a dry laugh. "So when I still had 0 viewers, you were already in my stream staring at me? Honestly, that's a little weird." "I think it's weird too, but maybe that's fate. So I ran straight to company headquarters and begged them to sign you." That part just now had been a fan confession. Now she switched into a professional tone. She had to gain Subaru's trust first. She had already prepared the contract, and she knew he was very busy, so she went straight to the point. Commercial advertisements, event streams, highlight clips, everything the Subaru brand could be expanded into, the company would help Subaru develop. Subaru asked directly, "Then what do I need to do?" She answered, "Just keep streaming as usual. You don't need to worry about anything else." Subaru found that absurd. Were guilds all this indulgent towards streamers? But after thinking about it, it made sense. He had mastered thunder magic, so naturally his treatment would be different. And it was not just their department. Even the company's upper management thought very highly of him. Subaru asked one more thing. Were all managers like her? Wika was a little embarrassed. "The others are more professional than I am, and more reliable too. Of course, I'm not saying I'm unprofessional." That was not actually what Subaru meant. He just felt that Wika's aura did not resemble that of an ordinary hunter. Could the overall level of hunters now really be so high that even someone like this was working as a manager? That also meant that from now on, the opponent Subaru would face would only grow stronger. He had no time to rest and had to keep accelerating. Wika, meanwhile, was still blaming herself. Had she made him think she was unreliable? What if Subaru refused? If it came to that, would she have to force the contract through on sheer willpower? At that moment, Subaru slowly extended his hand. "I can tell that you're trustworthy. I agree to join you. I look forward to working together." Wika nearly burst into tears on the spot. This was the first time she had been trusted so quickly. After the signing was finished, Subaru started streaming again the very next day, preparing to enter the trial. But not long after, he discovered that the stream already had 700 viewers. Subaru froze. He had only just gone live, so how had so many people suddenly appeared? Was the guild promoting him? The truth was exactly what he suspected. Wika had frantically mobilized her friends and relatives to share the stream, and had even pulled internal company staff into helping promote it. Subaru let out a light laugh. Choosing their guild really had been the right decision. Then let the game begin. The legendary stage was about to begin. The legendary stage was about to begin. At that moment, a suppressed and restless sigh came from inside a tent. More than a dozen figures had already gathered there. These people were the Scar-Faced Man, Peleus, and the others, all assembled here to discuss how to subjugate the giants. Peleus asked the Scar-Faced Man whether their benefactor had arrived yet. The Scar-Faced Man said not yet. Very soon, someone voiced out. Was it really wise to place their hopes on someone who was not even a knight? They all felt that Subaru could not possibly kill the giants. Unless they saw it with their own eyes, they might very well be getting deceived. Peleus roared, "All of you, shut up. What right do you have to question our benefactor?" Just then, a familiar voice sounded, "Sir Peleus." Looking up, they saw Subaru standing right outside the tent. Peleus immediately went up to him. "Have your injuries recovered?" Subaru said there was no serious problem anymore, and that he did not need support and could move normally. Someone stared at Subaru with a complicated expression. A new fan entered the live stream and commented, "So he's the one who defeated the giant leader? Honestly, he doesn't look strong at all, and that mask is way too suspicious." Subaru moved slightly and replied to him, "Sounds like you still don't believe I did it. Or maybe you just don't want to believe it." This function had been taught to him by Wika. By adopting a preset posture, he could adjust the control frequency, so that only the live stream audience could hear him. He had not expected such a function to be quite useful in this kind of boring situation. Someone in the chat sent a message, "Don't get so full of yourself." After that, someone reached out, wanting to introduce himself to Subaru. The old man called himself Dale. "Pleased to meet you." Subaru responded politely and said that he had been defending the village at the time, and after that everyone had been crushed to death. And what crushed them was that thing. Hearing that thing, was there really something even more dangerous than giants? As you know, true giants are giants who once fought the gods. After they were sealed, they disappeared. And the giants seen now are mostly remnants, formed from the will and traces left behind by the original giants. But the giant that appeared after Subaru defeated the leader was different. That thing was closer to the giants of legend. The live stream began discussing it. What they're talking about can't be the monster from the 8th floor, can it? Inside the tent, everyone sank into oppression and fear, because they had absolutely no way of dealing with the newly appeared giant. Subaru said those were all minor issues. If a new enemy had appeared, then they would just kill it. Hearing that, everyone seemed to swallow a pill of reassurance. But a hater in the live stream spoke up again. "You sure are confident. When the time comes, you won't even know how you died." Sir Peleus gave a loud shout. "Then let me tell you." An ancient legend had been passed down to this day. Atop that 1,000-year mountain peak that pierced the clouds, there was said to be a fragment of lightning hidden there. And Peleus believed that only one person could find it. That person was Subaru. A village burst into raging flames, and the villagers fled in all directions for their lives. Only because before them, a group of giants was advancing. Behind the giants stood an even larger long-haired giant, declaring that he would avenge his son. After that, he grabbed one of the village soldiers. With the slightest squeeze of his fingers, he crushed the soldier to death. He swore that he would use human blood to let his son rest in peace. Not far away, Subaru stared fixedly at that figure. This thing really was different from the giants before. It was far stronger. The livestream viewers were frightened. Why is this guy so huge? Subaru pulled on the reins, his mind racing. How was he supposed to deal with it? Someone in the stream urged him to stop doing the mission. If he kept going, he would definitely die, because that giant was not something he could handle at all. He remembered Peleus's words. "The giant will probably reach here in about 3 days. If by then you still haven't found Thunder, I hope you'll evacuate. That is the only way out. To ensure your safety, you must obey." Very soon, Subaru arrived at 1,000-Year Mountain. To kill the giant, lightning was indispensable. Perhaps that was the true core of this trial. Subaru was not considered top tier in strength right now, but he still firmly believed, in this tower, there is no trial I can't overcome. The moment he said it, he cursed inwardly. Damn it, how did I accidentally say one of my old catchphrases again? Sure enough, someone in the chat immediately found it familiar. They had definitely heard that line somewhere before, and it sounded very familiar. Fortunately, they did not grasp the key point. Very soon, a string of mission prompts popped up before Subaru, and people also began donating. At this moment, Subaru stood at the foot of 1,000-Year Mountain. According to Peleus, the lightning fragment was hidden here. But now the problem came. How exactly was he supposed to obtain the lightning fragment? He touched the rock face of the mountain and found that its hardness far exceeded that of ordinary stone. Peleus had said before, the lightning fragment existed only in legend. It might be a power, an item, or even a person. In reality, no one knew for sure. Unfortunately, aside from knowing the mountain's location and the content of the legend, they knew nothing else. The only thing that could be confirmed was that the person who had once wielded lightning had wiped out the giants in one stroke. At the same time, Wika received a call from the guild president. She excitedly said that she had already signed the contract. A hearty laugh came from the other end of the line. Well done. The president told her to keep up the good work and said he would assign her some targets afterward. After hanging up, Wika happily flopped onto the bed, ready to watch Subaru's stream. Watching Subaru's streams was her favorite thing. Very soon, she opened the stream. But in the next second, she heard Subaru say, "In this tower, there is no trial I cannot overcome." Wika's heart suddenly sank. She immediately sat upright. This guy, he didn't accidentally say what was on his mind, did he? That was something that person had said 20 years ago. Now he had repeated it in front of so many people. It was too dangerous. Wouldn't this cause trouble? Meanwhile, at the foot of Thousand Year Mountain, Subaru was charged with thunder from head to toe, preparing to try the method he had just thought of. He slammed a fist into the mountain wall. Then he suddenly drew back his fist to gather strength. He poured all the power in his body into his fist and struck the mountain again, with thunder crackling nonstop in his ears. A moment later, some tiny fragments fell from the rock layers. Subaru gave a low laugh. Found it, lightning fragments. He had done this because he felt a powerful force of lightning pulling him. And the result was exactly as he had guessed. Inside the mountain, a door was hidden. The power he had sensed was behind that door. Subaru did not hesitate and stepped forward immediately. Even the livestream audience was stunned by this. They were seeing it for the first time too. Very soon, Subaru arrived beneath the stone door. He slowly pressed his hand against it. The instant his fingers touched the stone door, he felt a current respond. System prompt. Lightning is being generated. At the same time, his wedge of greed was resisting the thunder recoil. At this moment, Subaru directly condensed lightning in his palm. What he wanted had to be inside that door. That earlier pulling sensation had been as if it were calling out to him. Since that was the case, then his most direct answer was to blast the door open with even stronger lightning. The thunder around Subaru surged violently and slammed into the crack of the door. Under the erosion of lightning, the stone door trembled violently. Very soon, Subaru saw a gap tear open in the seam. Sure enough, the door had been forced open by him. This trial was hidden deep. If thunder hadn't been pulling me, I would never have guessed the door was inside the mountain. Subaru lifted his foot and walked in. He would follow the path he had once walked and walked it once more through the echo of thunder. And after he stepped through the stone door, it closed again. Unless he completed the stage inside, he would absolutely not get out. At the same time, Peleus was still discussing countermeasures with several senior officers. One old man asked, "Do you really believe that person can obtain the power of thunder?" Peleus did not waver at all. He definitely can. If even he can't do it, then no one in this world can. The old man was surprised. Peleus trusted an outsider this much. Peleus explained, "He has already proven himself with his strength, so I have no reason to doubt him." But at that moment, the old man heard another voice come from the corner. "Even if he masters thunder, it won't change anything. We're all going to die." Everyone turned and saw an officer trembling in the corner. He had seen the power of that giant with his own eyes, so he was convinced no one could win. Peleus comforted him. "Don't think too much. We won't give up that easily. Believe in that man. He will definitely create a miracle." The officer completely broke down. "Easy for you to say. You have no idea how terrifying that giant is." At this moment, his fingers had already rubbed themselves raw and bloody, but he did not feel it at all. Just then, a loud explosion suddenly came from outside the tent. A violent tremor followed, making even the cups on the table shake. Very soon, a soldier rushed into the tent. Bad news, the giants had attacked. At that moment, no one in the tent could remain seated, and their faces were full of shock. Meanwhile, inside the cave. After entering the cave, Subaru raised his vigilance to the maximum. He did not know what the thing pulling him wanted him to do. He walked inside the cave for a long time, yet saw nothing. A fan in the live stream said, "It's not that there's nothing there, it's that lightning is too fast, so you can't see it." That was true. Before a discharge, lightning was only dispersed electric charge, and ordinary people could not see it at all. Even Subaru could not see it. The speed of the charge exceeded what the naked eye could catch. So Subaru slowly closed his eyes. 3 days later, Subaru felt an even stronger lightning force calling to him from deep inside the cave. He abruptly opened his eyes, and a guess rose in his mind. He bent down and picked up a stone. Immediately after, he threw the stone forward at high speed. Sure enough, Just as he had expected, invisible lightning filled the air, and the farther one went inside, the stronger the reaction became. Very soon, under the compounding speed, that stone was ground directly into powder. When the livestream viewers saw this, they were all stunned. Cold sweat seeped from Subaru's forehead. The danger level exceeds expectations. Looks like this stage is testing endurance. If I can't withstand it, I'll die here. Very soon, people in the livestream began encouraging him, and someone posted a 100-point task. You have to reach the top here. Otherwise, you may lose the thunder skill you just learned. More and more viewers began supporting him, and the total mission reward points quickly piled up to 3,000. Subaru made up his mind and stepped forward, and in an instant, streaks of lightning flashed all over his body. He first thanked everyone for the rewards, then said that he would definitely complete the mission. Meanwhile, Shu was watching Subaru's stream. From the very moment Subaru went live, he had quietly slipped into the stream. Just then, the door was pushed open by a woman. Reina suddenly walked in, startling Shu so badly that he immediately closed the stream. Reina looked puzzled. Why are you hiding your phone? Don't tell me you were looking at something dirty. Shu said he was not hiding it. He had just happened to turn off the screen, and his eyes were tired too. Reina did not press much further, and even started saying weird things like quiet people grow their hair faster. Reina had been troubled lately. Ever since Shu said that line, she had been holding herself back from watching Subaru streams, and it was driving her crazy. Shu had no mood to chat with her. He only wanted to hurry back and continue watching the stream, so he asked how long she planned to stay. Reina grew even more confused. Shu had never driven her away before. Can I relax on your sofa for a bit? What was that reaction just now supposed to mean? Shu deliberately raised his voice, trying to drive her away. Reina, what are we eating tonight? Grilled fish? Or grilled meat? He was shouting like ultrasonic waves. Reina's eardrums were about to burst, but Shu kept going. Relax as much as you want. The sofa's all yours. His fingers were pressing down on the phone's volume button for dear life, afraid even the slightest bit of stream audio might leak out for her to hear. Reina felt that she was far too abnormal today, and there had to be something wrong. So she turned to leave. I'm done with you. Do whatever you want. Seeing her leave, Shu finally let out a breath of relief. He even added a fake polite line. You can stay and have some bread if you want. If you want to lie down, go ahead. But Reina could no longer be bothered with him. Reina slammed the door shut. Shu thought to himself how close that had been. He had almost been caught red-handed, so he quickly resumed watching the stream. If Reina discovered he was watching Subaru's stream, she would definitely make a huge scene, and he did not even dare imagine that kind of argument. Shu looked somewhat lonely. Even if their positions were reversed, Subaru would not have forgotten them. And the more he watched, the more he felt that this person was becoming more and more like the boss, to the frightening point that even his way of speaking and personality felt similar. There was only one difference. Desperately scrambling for points was nothing like the boss's style. The boss had never risked his life for money. At that thought, Shu gave a low laugh. Who exactly are you? Anyway, you really are too much like him. Fully focused, he failed to notice that a hand had already landed on his shoulder. He slowly turned around, never expecting Reina to suddenly double back and catch him completely off guard. Reina was staring at him with a dark expression. I knew something was wrong with you. Did you really think I wouldn't notice? If you think you can fool me, try waiting another 100 years. At the same time, every step Subaru took caused thunder to strike him on the spot. At the moment the lightning hit him, he suddenly saw a system window, progress 2.3%. This feeling was too familiar. He had handled lightning so many times that he had lost count. He took another step. Ironically, this thing was even friendly, actually displaying the goal to him directly. The livestream viewers were totally confused. Why isn't he running? Subaru said quietly that from this point on, he might not be able to keep chatting with them anymore. He advanced toward the front step by step. His reaching the end had always been inevitable. The lightning damage was indeed severe, even his palms had been burned black, but it still was not enough to stop him. At that moment, Hawkeye's was also staring at Subaru's stream. From the very second Subaru went live, Hawkeye's had not looked away once. The president had long since told Hawkeye's they had gone to great lengths to invite Subaru to collaborate with him. This was no small matter. After all, the last time President John personally stepped in to handle something had been a very, very long time ago. And John had repeatedly brought it up with Hawkeye's before too. The commercial operation of streaming could only be done halfway by one person alone. Hawkeye's had smiled at the time. Popularity would only drive certain categories of players, and players of similar types. After circling around so much, what John had really wanted to say came down to one sentence. Subaru was not really a streamer, he was a genuine hunter. Though he was a novice streamer, he was broadcasting in the style of an observer's perspective. So John believed this was an opportunity. They absolutely had to seize this comet, ride its momentum skyward, and become a star that rose alongside him. That line had indeed left Hawkeye stunned. But in the next second, golden light lit up in his eyes. The boss is right. This really is an opportunity. More than anyone else, he longed to become a star. Hawkeye wanted to hang in the galaxy above the 9 heavens like a star. From the day he entered the world of streaming, that had been his one and only dream. He instinctively reached out a hand, as if trying to confirm whether he too could stand at that kind of height. But in the next second, he suddenly came back to himself. What kind of nonsense was he thinking during work? He immediately stood up and fixed his eyes on Subaru's stream again. It would have been better if he had not looked, because the instant he did, his expression changed. Had this guy gone insane? Who gave him this much nerve? At this moment, under the crushing pressure of the lightning, Subaru had already advanced a considerable distance. During that time, his skin had been burned away piece by the lightning. His arms too were charred black. Yet even injured to this extent, Subaru still did not make a single sound. He slowly lifted his foot, preparing to take another step. The instant his foot came down heavily, countless bolts of lightning surged up from the ground and shot directly into his body. Subaru mobilized all the power in his body to resist by force. This impact was fiercer and deeper than the last wave. After a while, he finally endured it and began gasping for breath. He discovered that the stronger the lightning, the deeper it penetrated his body. Now Subaru felt it was almost enough. There was already a dangerously large amount of lightning inside his body. And he could sense that the lightning had begun to surge into the central meridians within him and every tiny branch channel. System progress bar, 20.7%. When the progress reached 1/5, his meridians were forcibly evolved by the lightning, in other words, marrow cleansing. Every time lightning passed through his meridians, part of it would remain behind, sink into his body, and become his magic power. But some of it would also escape, so he had to hold it tightly and make it completely his own power. The 2 central meridians ran through the front and back of the body. The fine channels spread across every corner of the body, and when the fine channels were opened, it meant thunder had reached every part of the body. And with this body, Subaru directly skipped the process of purifying the fine channels. He had taken a shortcut, no longer going the long way around as he once had. At this moment, blood seeped from the corner of Subaru's mouth, and he could clearly feel it. His injuries were severe. Normally he would use magic to accomplish all of this. Borrowing lightning was indeed faster, but the pain was nearly indescribable. Along the path he walked, trails of blood dragged behind him. But Subaru never looked back, only moved forward relentlessly, because he knew that before reaching the end, he could not stop. Just then, he spat out another large mouthful of blood. Elsewhere, Wika was leaning against a wall, watching the stream. Her eyes were full of worry. Just from the footage alone, she could tell how cruel this stage was. Even Wika could see that Subaru was forcibly opening his fine blood vessels. It was the first time she had ever seen someone do it this way, while moving his body, without relying on his own magic or inner force, instead prying them open by force through external power. That level of pain absolutely exceeded imagination. An ordinary person would not even be able to sit upright, and would have passed out long ago. Death in the tower would not carry over into reality, but pain was absolutely real. Wika's hands were trembling as she watched. Why was he pushing himself this far? She did not understand, but all she wanted was for Subaru to come back safely, and for his mind not to be damaged. Subaru kept receiving system prompts. Progress has reached 50, fine channels evolving, thunder power surging inside the body, mana +1. And at that very moment, a trace of sadness suddenly rose in his heart, and he thought of the arrogant self he once had been. He suddenly realized that he was almost like the murderer who had killed them with his own hands. Back when they challenged the 8th floor, he had told his teammates there was no trial he could not overcome. He had even assured them not to worry, that as long as he was there, they would definitely be safe, because the final winner would inevitably be him. And after hearing that, the team members had shown him complete, unreserved trust. Rina and Shu in front had believed him most deeply of all. They were the ones who understood him best. But if not for his arrogance, they would never have been wiped out. If he had not said those careless words back then, if his conceit had not pushed everyone forward, they would not have died. The source of the sin is me. We were never supposed to die. And Itsuki, one day, I'll flay him alive with my own hands. The moment Itsuki's face surfaced in his mind, another surge of power erupted inside Subaru, forcing him to continue forward. It's all my fault. I don't deserve to be captain. In the next second, Subaru's body crashed heavily to the ground. At this moment, he was covered in wounds, his consciousness beginning to blur, and he could pass out at any time. But when he opened his eyes again, the scene before him had changed. Subaru froze. Where was this? And he seemed to have become Subaru again. He turned his head and saw a group of people camping behind him. Those people were all the Blue Eyes members from back then. Subaru suddenly shoved aside the grass and rushed over. He treated all of this as a dream. They had to still be alive. they had to still be safe and sound. Very soon, he approached the two figures at the very back. With tears in his eyes, he wanted to greet them. "How are you here? I have nightmares every day. I'm scared half to death." But the two of them turned around and said coldly, "Subaru, you were the one who drove us into a dead end." Their appearance made Subaru jolt in shock. "What happened to you?" Not just them, even the girl beside them slowly spoke. "You said so many beautiful heroic words. But why didn't you protect us? Look how miserably we died." Seeing Chino's expression, Subaru's pupils contracted violently. Flames rose from all of them as they closed in on him step by step. Subaru wanted to explain, but his throat seemed locked shut, unable to force out even half a word. At this moment, they were like evil spirits come to claim his life. Looking at their burning bodies, Subaru felt as if his heart were being torn apart. "Don't go, please don't go. Stay, okay?" He rushed forward and tried to grab them, but no matter whom he reached for, he could not hold on to anyone. Subaru dropped helplessly to his knees, his voice breaking from screaming, "Don't go. Stay. It was all my fault." With a boom, a burst of light exploded in his mind. Only then did he understand. This was the kind of illusion commonly seen when the fine channels opened, and just now he had almost suffered deviation. The system showed that progress had reached 97. Fine channel evolution in progress. Thunder has taken residence in the body, mana +1. The moment Subaru crossed through that trial, he actually felt a little like saying thank you to its designer. "Whoever designed this terrible trial, thank you for reminding me why I'm still alive. Itsuki, just wait for me. Sooner or later, I'll kill you." Elsewhere, the people below were resisting the white-haired giant. This was no longer merely a matter of defense, but of the life and death of the entire city. A gigantic figure stood before them. The moment everyone saw it clearly, their whole bodies turned cold. This was absolutely not something they could deal with. Even if all of them attacked together, they probably would only amount to food. One soldier's voice trembled. "This has to be a joke, right? So that masked guy really did run away after all?" Pelias said in a deep voice, "Our benefactor will definitely come back. There's no need for panic." Fury surged inside him. "You handed the fate of the village to a stranger whose name you don't even know, and now you still dare doubt him?" Pelias only felt ashamed. "With the likes of you, you still call yourselves knights? You're nothing but a pack of cowards afraid of dying." Someone behind him patted his shoulder. "You're right, they are a pack of cowards afraid of dying." Dale said to the crowd, before blaming others, "Remember this first, protecting the village is our responsibility." After saying that, he slowly drew his longsword. "Knights are not those who are protected. Knights are those who protect others. Anyone with courage, charge with me." In the next moment, Dale rushed out. Though aged, every step he took was as heavy as iron. Following behind him were Pelias and a group of fearless knights. Dale shouted loudly, "Today, let us die in the posture of true knights." Meanwhile, Subaru's progress had already reached 99 and was about to end. But at the same time, his body was also nearing its limit, and he was not sure whether he could endure the final 1%. In front of him floated a round bead. He did not know what it was, but judging from the progress, it was the final 1%. Very soon, Subaru's fatigue soared to 97. Once fatigue reached 100, he would die. His mask was nearly shattered, and lines of blood kept seeping from the corners of his eyes. Only one final step remained now. He absolutely could not fall here. The system issued a red warning: "You must recover your stamina. Continuing to move is extremely dangerous." But Subaru ignored the warning directly and lifted his foot again, taking another step. Elsewhere, Dale stamped heavily on the ground with one foot. Today, this old knight would stand at the very front. Even if he died, he would die usefully. With that thought, strength surged into his arm. He brought his sword down across the giant's arm, and a huge spray of blood burst out on the spot. The giant screamed. As if from the moment it had been born until now, it had never suffered such a heavy wound. Immediately afterward, its attack lunged straight at Dale, but Dale calmly dodged aside. The giant's body was too large, and its movements were slow instead. Pelias charged in with sword in hand. "Dale, hold on. I'm coming to support you." With a furious roar, he poured all his strength into his blade. "Leave the rest to me." He stepped onto the monster's knee in one stride. Borrowing that force, he leapt up and charged straight for the monster's head. That was its only weak point. At this moment, Pelias looked like a knight beneath moonlight. His sword came down, hacking viciously into the monster's skull. With a flash of blade light, the monster's head fell on the spot. Its enormous body slowly collapsed. No one had expected Pelias to be this strong. With a thunderous crash, Pelias landed back on the ground as well. The knights behind him were overjoyed. As expected of Sir Pelias and Sir Dale, "We finally brought it down." As they shouted, several of them rushed over and stabbed the giant's corpse wildly. "Filthy monster, just die properly for me." Pelias looked at Dale. "Thanks for the reminder. The most dangerous one is dead, so we can finally catch our breath." But Dale only said one word: "No." His expression was grave. "That's not the monster I was talking about." At this moment, a few soldiers were still mocking. "So giants are only this much after all." In the next second, their smiles froze. A giant foot came down directly on one man's head. The next moment, that man's body was crushed into fragments. Peleus and Dale finally saw the newcomer clearly, and Dale spoke with extreme urgency. "That's the monster I meant." Peleus's expression changed sharply. "This is on a completely different level. We can't possibly beat it. Everyone, retreat." At the same time, Subaru's progress had already reached the point. Dragging his heavy steps, he finally stood before the sphere of light. The instant he grabbed the sphere, the progress jumped to 100%. "I'll finish everything, then go to hell and apologize to you. I'll bring Itsuki's head and offer it as your memorial." Gradually, several bolts of lightning gathered around him, converging toward the orb. In the next second, enormous lightning directly enveloped him. Even he had not expected this. After being pierced through by the lightning strike, Subaru still did not fall. It was finally over, evolution complete. But at that very moment, Subaru's pupils suddenly contracted. He felt something was wrong inside his body. When he sensed carefully, countless bolts of lightning were crashing wildly through him, as if trying to tear him apart. System notification. Fine channel evolution complete. Magic amplification rate increased by 20%. All skill activation speed increased by 20%. All attributes +2. For a moment, Subaru could not say a word. Even at the very end, it still had to hit him with one more of those. At the very least, it should have let him explain to the livestream how strong that final strike had been. With a thud, Subaru collapsed heavily to the ground, his head tilting to one side as he fell into deep sleep. System prompt, Stage 6, Legend, cleared.